Riprendono. Devo ancora mangiare, vi chiedo veramente scusa ragazzi, ma i tempi sono questi. Ora dovrebbe esserci un testimone presente. Spiripollo e una fetta di pizza. Focaccia. Non ho tempo. Tipo di mu? No, perché non li vendono più.
All right, be seated. Your next witness?
Non le puoi più comprare sul play alle munizioni.
Okay.
SCHNELL.
Thank you, sir.
Ron Chanel. Ok. E tu sei?
All right.
Please introduce yourself to the jury.
I'm Ron Schnell.
And what is your current job title, Mr. Schnell?
I'm a director at Berkeley Research Group.
And could you briefly describe your educational background since high school?
I have a master's degree in computer science.
Do you have an undergraduate degree?
I do not.
And can you explain to the jury why not?
When I was a kid, there was a lot of publicity about me because I was a professor at NYU. When I was 14, NYU actually offered me to go into their freshman class when I was 14, but I decided that I wanted to experience the social aspect of high school, so I turned them down, but by the time I got to college, they skipped me from undergraduate to graduate.
So when did you receive your master's degree?
Checo, sto mangiando di corsa,
It wasn't
figurati.
until 2008, actually.
And why wasn't it until 2008?
So because of my previous background while I was at Syracuse, including I did work at MIT in the artificial intelligence lab for the two founders of artificial intelligence, Patrick Winston and
Ricercatore della Berkeley.
I was immediately lured to industry even while I was in graduate school, and eventually they offer you enough money where you have to take them up on it.
So when you were lured away from Syracuse University, what did you do?
I worked at Bell Labs on something called the Unix operating system. Unix is an operating system.
Spiripollo ragazzi, sto mangiando velocissimo perché la pausa è brevissima.
Microsoft Windows is an operating system. Mac OS is an operating system. You may have heard of Linux, which is, Unix was the predecessor to Linux. So I worked on the kernel of the Unix operating system at Bell Labs.
And when
Insomma,
was
è
that?
uno scappato di casa.
1986.
And how long did you work at Bell Labs?
A couple of years.
And what did you do after Bell Labs?
After that, I was lured away to IBM. So I worked at IBM on their version of the Unix operating system, which was called AIX.
È molto
Also working
interessato.
on the kernel and managing other programmers working on the kernel.
And can you just briefly explain what the kernel is?
Right, the kernel is the center of the operating system, so it actually controls the piece of software that controls the whole computer. So it gets down to the bit level where it's actually really everything that goes on in the computer has to go through the kernel.
And what did you do
Questo
after
è un
IBM?
dio.
After IBM, I founded a startup company.
What was the name of that startup company?
It was called Secure Online Systems.
And what did Secure Online Systems do?
It was a company that wrote software for mainframe computers running
Ricercatore per la
various
Berkeley,
versions of the
programmatore
Unix
di
operating system.
Unix, Gesù sceso in
And
terra.
were there any other investors?
Omega
in Secure
degli anni
Online
70.
Systems, Inc.?
Yeah, my business partner in that was Sylvester Stallone.
And what eventually happened to Secure Online Systems?
Well, it was, as I said, a software product that ran on mainframe computers running Unix, and we actually completed the product, and it ran
Cazzo
very
c'entra
well.
Stallone?
Mainframes running Unix kind of ceased to exist back then, so we had to shut it down.
So what did you do after the company shut down?
Then I went to work
Forse, Daniel.
at Sun Microsystems, working on their version of Unix, which is called Solaris, also working on the kernel.
And
Vabbè, ma è Gesù.
approximately how long were you there at Sun?
Approximately 5 years.
And did you also work for Drivers Aces Inc.?
Right. Coincident with that, I also founded another startup called Driver Aces. And we wrote what are called device drivers to run on the Unix operating systems. A device driver actually teaches the computer how to talk to hardware devices, so it also runs within the kernel.
Have you founded any other startups?
Yes.
And what was the other startup? What was at least one of the other startups?
So
Apple.
the last startup I founded was called mailcall.com, M-A-I-L. And that was a startup that allowed you to read and manage your email on your cellular phone before there were smartphones. So a computerized voice would read you your email and you could speak a reply into the phone or send it to a fax machine, basically let you manage your email on the road.
And what happened to mailcall.com?
I sold that to a public company in 2000.
And what'd you do after that?
After that, I ended up working at Equifax, one of the 3 credit bureaus in the United States, running software development for their internet marketing division.
And how long were you in that position?
La prima
Until
parte dell'interrogatorio
2005.
è sempre così proprio perché devono stabilire chi è che hanno davanti. Si è bloccato tutto? Non sono io, vero? Sì, non sono io, perfetto. Comunque, la prima parte dell'interrogatorio è sempre così perché cercano di stabilire appunto l'autorevolezza del testimone. Lui è quello che ha creato quella di prima, esatto. Lui è padre. C'era uno signal. E niente. Sì, è un problema loro. Mi scusi. Ok, tutte queste credenziali e poi mi si blocca la diretta. Cioè, lei programma questo, programma quello, startup e tutto quanto e poi mi si blocca la diretta. Ma lei ha un dispositivo in tasca di cui non ci comunica? Si è bloccato IRL. In realtà è giusto, è fermo lui. IRL, si è congelato. Si aprono l'inquadratura, lui è fermo e Johnny si muove.
Although since COVID, I haven't been doing that.
And have you published any scholarly articles?
Yes, I have 2 published articles, one related to computer security and another relating to antitrust enforcement using technology.
Hanno riavviato il router.
What experience do you have in statistical or forensic analysis of social media?
Lì volevamo arrivare, lo
A bunch of
sapevo.
the consulting work I've done involves analyzing data from social media. Most of them have been consulting.
Sapevo che
for
volevamo
litigation.
arrivare
Some
lì.
of them are consulting for non-litigation. Yeah.
And is that work both in civil and criminal matters?
Yes.
And could you describe the work just a bit more in terms of what you've performed regarding statistical or forensic analysis of social media?
I can't talk about the specific cases because I haven't testified on them, and some of them are awaiting indictment, most likely. But in general, it's really the same sort of stuff I've been doing here, analyzing data from the social networks.
Sto succo è una
And what
bomba.
social media platforms have you performed forensic analysis?
All of the major ones:
And what are the major ones?
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Reddit.
How much of your expert work is for plaintiffs versus work for defendants?
Well, I don't consider myself working for either plaintiff or defendant. I take my role as an independent expert extremely seriously. But looking at whose counsel has hired me over the 9 or so years I've been doing this, it's almost exactly equal.
And how many times have you been a consulting expert?
Including litigation and non-litigation, hundreds.
How many times have you been qualified in court, arbitration, or in sworn court testimony to provide expert testimony?
8 times.
Have you ever been disqualified as an expert by a court?
No.
Do you believe that your testimony will be helpful in assisting the jury understand the facts of this case?
Che domanda è?
Your Honor, at this time, I tender Mr. Schnell as an expert in the fields of statistical and forensic analysis of social media.
Any objection?
Your Honor, can we be heard?
Do you want to voir dire?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you can voir dire.
Thanks. Sir, my name's Wayne Dennison. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You made here an analysis of certain tweets and hashtags, right? And you made no effort to connect those tweets and hashtags to the statements being made by Adam Waldman.
I'll sustain the objection. The voir dire is just for his qualifications as an expert.
Can we be heard, Your Honor?
If you want to come forward,
Thank you.
that's fine.
Certain tweets and you made here an analysis of certain tweets and hashtags, right?
Right.
And you made no effort to connect those tweets and hashtags to the statements being made by Adam Waldman.
I'll sustain the objection. The voir dire is just...
Voglio capire. Allora, stavano per parlare. Allora, lui è una persona estremamente qualificata che è stata chiamata da Amber per adesso penso che sia per, non c'entra più quella roba tra Amber e Johnny, penso che adesso abbia a che fare con la causa di Amber verso Johnny, quindi quella che riguarda le parole dette da Adam Waldman, che è quello di prima, quello che non poteva mai parlare perché era sempre l'avvocato che non poteva dire nulla. L'hanno chiamato come esperto per adesso immagino valutare le statistiche di Twitter eccetera eccetera, e l'avvocato di Johnny stava cercando di fare un'obiezione ma non ho capito di cosa.
All right, so Mr. Dennison, do you have any objection to him moving in as an expert?
No.
All right, then I'll move him in as an expert in statistical and forensic analysis of social media. Okay? Yes, sir, your question.
Mr. Schnell, what were you asked to do in this matter?
So I was asked to do several things. I used the official Twitter APIs to bring in data over several different time spans. Initially, it was April of 2020 to January of 2021. And analyzed various hashtags and things like that.
And what is significant about April 2020?
Aprile
I
del
understand
2020.
that April 2020 is related to the alleged defamatory statements by Mr. Waldman.
And you talked about APIs. What does that mean?
So API stands for Application Programming Interface. That is a service that's provided by companies like Twitter so that professionals can write programs to query Twitter to ask for various things. In this case, I use 2 of their APIs. One of them is called the Search API, and that allows you to give search terms, and it will return all the tweets containing those search terms through a certain date range. The other one is called Accounts API, and I use that, again, through a certain date range to return any tweet that contained that hashtag. And I should add that it may not be obvious why you need to do this, but if you just do a search on Twitter.
Quello che invece voglio dire io è, voi pensate questo povero tribunale che fino all'altro giorno faceva roba da un giorno in pretura e adesso deve parlare con questi dei che camminano fra di noi?
Almost guaranteed that you'll get everything.
And you mentioned hashtags. I know a lot of people know what those are, but for those who don't, what's a hashtag?
Well, hashtags are a function of Twitter. They're really just part of the text of a tweet or a profile, and it's convenient to put things in hashtags so that when somebody searches, they can search for a particular hashtag and it'll come up.
And did you choose particular hashtags to search for?
I did.
And how did you choose which hashtags to use?
Well, initially I was looking at tweets that would be negative towards Ms. Heard. So I looked through tweets that were negative towards Ms. Heard, and I found that a super majority of them were using one of 4 different hashtags.
And so overall, what did your analysis find regarding negative hashtags about Ms. Heard from April 2020 until the end of January 2021?
Well, there were over 1,243,000 and change uses of those hashtags during that time frame you just mentioned.
And did you perform an analysis of the negative hashtags from April 2020 until January 2022?
Yes, I did.
And what was the result of that?
There were over another million, so 2.38 million, I think.
And how did you determine that the tweets were negative about Ms. Heard?
Well, I hadn't been asked that until later on in this, but I didn't think that that would be in controversy. I mean, some of these hashtags are pretty rude, and it would really surprise me that anyone would think that they wouldn't be negative towards Ms. Heard. But when I was asked about it later, I actually took a random sampling and looked at them and could not find any that were not negative towards Ms. Heard.
And what was the random sampling that you used?
I did 2 of them. They were 1,000 each.
And how did you determine which?
Perché Dani, la causa che ha fatto lei da 100
I
milioni
wrote a program
valeva
that
su questo.
truly selected them at random.
And in your experience, is 2,000 tweets a meaningful sample?
If they're chosen at random in this universe, yes.
Okay. In addition to the 4
In questo
hashtags
universo,
from Ms. Heard, did
lui
you,
ha l'accesso al multiverso,
review
tutto
any other-
regolare.
Did you look at any other hashtags?
I did.
And what type of hashtags did you look for?
I looked at what I found to be 6 hashtags that would be negative towards Mr. Depp.
Okay, but Michelle, could you put up demonstrative 1, which is on the 5th page of attachment 4 of Mr. Schnell's expert designation. Mr. Schnell,
Certo, Dani.
did you create this chart?
I did.
And what data is this chart based on?
This is based on the search API from Twitter, and it rolls up the number of tweets with the various hashtags by month of these 2 years. 3 years.
Your Honor, I'd like to I'd make this a demonstrative Schnell demonstrative 1, or do you want it
Questo
to be
fanciullo è Dio sceso in terra, ricercatore estremamente qualificato, programmatore di Unix, eccetera,
And then
eccetera.
I will give you a number.
Well, the last number I have is 1837. I don't know.
Do we know if that's the last?
Which
Can we
one?
make it? Can we?
You wanna
How about we make it
1900?
1900? That way, it's not. How can we just make it 1900?
That's perfect.
Okay.
All right, 1900 it is. Any objections to demonstrative?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you can publish.
1900 prove.
And is this the chart you made, Mr. Schnell?
It is.
Okay.
Vorrei vederla.
At the top here, there are hashtags that are in yellow. You see that?
I do.
Okay. And if we go all the way to the right, well, first let's scroll over to the left here. I apologize. You see, in 2020, there's the months of June and July.
I do.
Okay. And what are these columns? First, tell the jury what they represent.
So each of these is the number of tweets with the hashtags, with the corresponding hashtag during that month.
Okay. And if we look
Sì,
at
Peppe,
the first
normale.
one in yellow, you see that first hashtag, the 4th one over?
I do.
And are there any,
Ho rotto la
what does
pipa.
it show from 2018 to July of 2020?
There were none.
And then what happens in August of 2020?
Well, there's a remarkable jump from
Ma che vera.
July to August of 2020. It goes from 0 to 13,878.
And if we scroll to the right, the last 3 hashtags, which are highlighted or shows the difference between June and July, what did your analysis show?
Well, you can see that June is about at its steady state. In July, there's also a remarkable jump.
And that's for all three of those hashtags?
That's correct.
Okay. And the hashtags, if the hashtags that are in blue are the ones related to Mr. Depp, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Oh, by the way, what is your understanding of when the last alleged defamatory statement was made by Mr. Depp through Mr. Waldman?
My understanding is that it was the end of June of that year.
Of 2020?
Yes.
Now, looking at the hashtags that are highlighted in blue for Mr. Depp,
Gennaro, non sopravvalutare.
for the months of November and December of 2018 and January of 2019, what does your analysis show?
Well, I see a remarkable jump in November of 2018, and
Amber.
then it starts to, well, it goes way down in December of 18 and January of 19.
Oh cazzo.
And do you know when Ms. Heard wrote the op-ed in this matter?
My understanding is that it was December of 2018.
And if we go to November of 2020 for the hashtags related to Mr. Depp, if you see the difference between October of 2020 and November of 2020, what do you see there?
I also see a large jump from October to November of 2020.
Okay. And if we look at the last hashtag in blue that says Johnny Depp is a wife beater, what does that show what did your analysis find in terms of tweets with those hashtags?
It looks to me that also, I mean, there
Per ora
are
no.
prior to, well, a little here and there, there are single digit ones, but prior to November of 2020, there are basically none, and then it jumps up to over 2,000.
And do you know what happened in November of 2020?
Recap.
My understanding is that's when the UK trial ended.
Hai voglia di guardarti la fine del voto di
Take
prima?
this down.
Typhoon.
And can you put up demonstrative 2, which will make 1901, which will identify as 1901?
That's fine, 1901. Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, 1901 can be published.
È inutile questo
And
calcolo.
Mr. Bagna, what data is this chart based on?
È la prima power move,
It's
però
the same thing, Mr. Schnell,
sono-
what data is this chart based on?
questo impressiona la giuria e
This
basta, non
chart
c'è,
is
non c'è
actually
nulla.
based on the data we just looked at, but out until January of 2022. And it's just another way of displaying the numbers in graphical form so that we can see peaks and valleys.
And what are the dotted lines?
Io non ho capito
So if
cosa
you look
vogliono
at the top,
dimostrare.
you can see that the dashed lines are
Beh, però
the
hanno
negative,
fatto esattamente quella
hashtags
cosa lì.
towards Ms. Heard.
Johnny Depp ha fatto
And the
quello,
solid
Gennaro.
ones are the negative hashtags towards Mr.
Hanno,
Depp.
hanno proprio usato quello.
And what is being shown here, in your analysis, what is shown with the tweets related to Ms. Heard?
Well, you can see that there's a huge spike in February of 2020, which I believe Mr. Waldman just testified that that's when he leaked an audio tape of some kind. There's also a notable, remarkable spike in July of 2020 in
Ma il fatto è che anche se le dichiarazioni di Waldman avessero dato
2020
qualche
March
lato
2020.
negativo a Amber, non importa, perché se le dichiarazioni
And
sono
the spike
vere,
in
non è
February
diffamazione.
2020, that came before the alleged defamatory statements, correct?
Which one?
The spike in February 2020.
That is correct.
And even though that spike came in before the alleged defamatory statements, even taking account for that spike, what time period has more negative tweets about Ms. Heard, before or after April 2020?
Right. So even taking into account this really large spike in February of 2020, and you look at from the beginning of 2018 until the beginning of 2022, there are a majority of the negative tweets are between April of 2020 through the
Esatto,
beginning of
Gennaro.
And
2022.
Do you recall at your deposition being asked that a spike in negative hashtags occurring before April 8th, right before April 8th, 2020?
Objection, hearsay.
I would ask about his.
Oggi quindi l'avvocato è quello massello con la voce antica.
I remember questions regarding
Oggi
particular
l'avvocato
dates,
che
yes.
parla per Depp è un
And
barba
what's your
grigia.
understanding as to why there was more negative tweets in April 6th and April 7th than April 8th, 2020?
Objection, no foundation.
Was there more negative tweets in April 6th, on April 6th and April 7th than in April 8th, 2020, as it relates to misheard?
Right. If you look at the day-by-day counts, which I supplied to Mr. Depp, and you can see that there's a spike that begins on April 6th and goes for a few days. So April 6th is, to my understanding, before what people are calling the alleged defamatory statement.
And did you look at the tweets for April 6th and April 7th?
I did.
And what did you find?
I found that there are Waldman
Devo
statements that are
ristampare
the
questo un po' più
same
largo.
as on the 8th, on the 6th, and the 7th. The Daily Mail on the 6th, and
Esatto, Tombstone.
Vanity Fair on the 7th.
And what terms were being used?
Well, hoax is certainly used in each of them. I think abuse hoax is used in one of them. I don't have it in front of me, but generally speaking, in the 7th, I think it's the same exact terms that are used in the one on the 8th, but the 6th may be slightly different, but it has the word hoax.
Okay. If we can go to the second page of this demonstrative. What's being shown in the second page of this demonstrative?
So this is generally, it's the same
cosa
data
stanno
as the first
provando?
one, but I've removed one hashtag, the Justice for Johnny Depp hashtag, because it kind of overwhelms all the others because there are so many of them. And by removing it, it sort of rescales the graph and you can see the others much better. And even though they looked really tiny in the previous page, you can see that they're big numbers, over 100,000 and stuff. So this shows, and if you look between the two, you can see that the curves are the same. So it shows like a mathematical correlation between all the hashtags.
So what do you mean by mathematical correlation?
Well, they're correlated. You can see the numbers go up and down at the same place.
So I'm understanding the hashtags are essentially all going up and down at the same times?
Correct.
No, non sono pari, Vatican. No,
Thank you.
lei
Can we
sta
put up,
perdendo.
Demonstrative Exhibit 3.
Which would make 1902.
1902,
That's
yes,
fine.
thank you.
All right, any objection to 1902?
No, this is
That's
demonstrative.
demonstrative, yes. Okay, you can publish that.
Il discorso è che non dimostra, cioè dimostra solo che quei tweet hanno preso piede, non che hanno torto o ragione.
And what does this chart show?
So what I did was I took the data that I supplied to Mr. Depp, which was the original data from
È il grafico
April
di quanto
2020
merda è,
through
infatti.
January of 2021, and I searched it for certain key terms, specifically hoax, fake, and fraud. That's what it's representing. The top part, anyway.
And the top part,
Fantastico,
if you
quindi-
look at for hoax, fake, and fraud and this is within the negative hashtags or misheard?
Right. This is only searching through the ones that have one of these 4 hashtags in them.
Okay, and if you look at the total, oops, I'm putting that in black, let's clear that. Well, you saw the line there, what's the total number of times it was used in the negative tweets, either hoax, fake, or fraud?
81,121.
And did you perform any other searches on the data?
Yes.
And what searches did you perform?
So I also looked in that same data for references to Waldman by itself, or Wald, and then followed by anything followed by Mignon or Minions, Minion, depending how you want to pronounce it, sort of a portmanteau of Waldman and filet mignon, I guess, or Minions, and looked for those in the same data.
And in terms of the percentage of the amount of
Io mi
times
immagino l'americano medio in giuria in questo momento.
negative hashtags from April 2020 through, is it January 2021?
The percent?
Yeah, what's the percentage?
Yeah, so I found over 25% of the negative hashtag tweets, or
Negativo.
1 out of every 4
Quindi almeno
on
25.
average, had
Oh no,
either
sono 4.
Waldman or Waldman Young.
And I see you ran searches for hoax, fake, fraud, rather than abuse hoax.
Ma in
quotes, or
pollici
sexual
o-
violence hoax and quotes. Why didn't you run those searches?
Objection, compound.
Overruled.
So
Quanto mi piace la voce di questo avvocato, non ve lo posso neanche iniziare a raccontare.
Hoax in quotes, that would require that it show up in exactly that way, with the same spacing, in the same order. So if it
Esatto,
says
Anna.
something like there was abuse and there was a hoax, it wouldn't get caught. So if I take the quotes out and search
Solo
for
che lo
them
stanno facendo peggio.
separately, search for things separately, that'll cover it and make sure that I catch everything.
And based on your analysis
Ma infatti,
of these
Assassin-
searches within the negative hashtags, what do the results of these searches mean?
Adesso sbagliamo i
obviously I
dati.
can't read what's in people's minds, but when I read the disclosure of Mr. Depp's expert, Mr. Banya, he stated that if these terms, in particular the Waldman term,
Objection, hearsay.
He's an expert.
No, overruled.
if these terms had shown up a lot of times in the negative hashtag tweets, then that could show that they were, paraphrasing the impetus of why people tweeted these. So I sort of adopted Mr. Banya's opinion on that and found this large number. So I agree with Mr. Depp's expert that this could show a substantial correlation.
And to what level of confidence do you hold the opinions you just provided to the jury?
To a reasonable degree of scientific certainty.
Thank you, Mr. Schnell. I have no further
All
questions.
right, cross-examination.
Ok, testimonianza. C'è una correlazione tra le dichiarazioni di Adam e l'odio verso Amber.
Sir, this is the first time that you've testified as an expert as in the field of statistical and forensic analysis of social media, isn't it?
I've consulted on litigation for it, but it never got to testimony. That's correct.
This is your first testimony.
Nico, grazie. Io voglio un audiolibro letto da sto tizio. Voglio un audiolibro letto da lui.
That's correct.
And you're being compensated for your time here today and the work you did, correct?
Berkeley Research Group is being compensated, yes.
At $600 an hour,
That's what they're getting paid.
right? And you're aware that Mr. Depp is being sued based on allegedly defamatory statements. What are the dates of those statements?
My understanding is there was something around April 8th, I believe April 27th and June 24th, somewhere in the end of June.
Okay. And where do you understand those statements to have resided?
In the public media.
Ok.
In any particular article or?
I didn't consider that.
All right. So you're not offering an opinion on how widely the articles that contain those statements were read?
That's correct.
And you're not offering an opinion as to how many people actually saw the language that's been attributed to Mr. Waldman?
Only a minimum number of people who could have seen it based on the tweets that referenced him.
Okay. And you don't know even where those references appear in the articles?
I'm not sure what you mean.
There are statements by Mr. Waldman that appear in articles. Do you understand that?
I do.
Do you know in what portion of the articles the statements appear?
I've looked at the articles, and from that, I've seen where they appear.
And where, in general, do they appear? In the middle, the end? What's your sense?
That I'm not sure of. I mean, the ones I looked at on the 6th and 7th, I think they were towards the top.
All right. So you testified that you reviewed a number of hashtags that you deemed were negative towards Ms. Heard. That's right?
Yes.
Yeah. And the four you picked, at least the negative ones, Justice for Johnny Depp, that's from one of them, right?
That's right.
Amber Heard is an abuser, that's one of them.
That is one of them.
We just don't like you, Amber, that's one of them.
That is one of them.
And the last one was Amber Turd, right?
That is another one.
Okay. And these 4 hashtags you identified and searched for, you don't believe they have any connection, or you testified that you have no connection to these 3 Waldman statements. The hashtags aren't connected to Waldman, right?
Well, I did an additional analysis that did show how many of those had Waldman connected to them, and I found that 1 out of 4 of them did.
Right. But when you were deposed, you were asked whether these were related.
Ci sarà,
These
sì.
particular hashtags were related to any of the Waldman statements, and you said no at that time.
I said more than that. I said I didn't know, and then I said I'm basing I'm looking at Mr. Banya's opinion where he says they would be if they were in large number, and I'm adopting his opinion and agreeing with him that they must be connected.
So you're adopting an opinion that hasn't been rendered in this case yet by anybody but you.
Well, I know that Mr. Banya.
Has testified.
Okay, what I'm saying is I know that Mr. Banya's disclosure says that he is expected to come to that opinion.
All right. But the only person who's ever expressed this opinion to date in this courtroom is you, correct?
I wouldn't know. I haven't watched everything. I've watched a bit.
So
but
you're adopting your own opinion.
no, I'm adopting the opinion that I read in Mr. Banya's disclosure.
All right. And that's not the opinion you had during your deposition.
I think I did make reference in my deposition to what Mr. Banya said, and that I agreed with it.
All right. And you indicated in deposition you didn't take into account statements made in the media, correct?
Made in what? I couldn't hear.
You said you did not take into account in your analysis statements made in the media.
Media. Yes, in the analysis where I gathered data and decided which data to gather, I did not take into account statements in the media.
All right. So you looked at data, you produced charts, you did analysis relating to the data, but you had no reason at the time you did this to consider any particular statements. Isn't that true?
That's true. I think that's an appropriate scientific methodology to not to first gather as much data as possible and then drill down on the data.
All right. And the
Ha
Twitter
appena
data you
dimostrato
collected
che
shows
sostanzialmente non era
hashtags
super partes.
you identified were in existence before Mr. Waldman.
Quindi ha appena dimostrato che la sua opinione è influenzata da quello che ha detto l'altro
correct.
prima di Depp.
In very small number.
But justice for Johnny Depp has been around since 2013, correct?
That sounds correct.
Yeah. Amber Heard is an abuser, and Amber Turd first appeared in 2016, correct?
I don't recall, actually.
Right. Do you recall if there was any portion of Mr. Waldman's statement that made any reference to Amber Turd?
Not that I've seen.
Right.
Oh,
People can form a negative view of Ms. Heard without reading Mr. Waldman's statements, correct?
ma che
People can form a
coglioni
negative opinion of
pentagonali
anyone without reading
hanno
anything.
questi avvocati?
And you didn't consider whether there was negative publicity around Ms. Heard other than the Waldman statement.
Esatto, Dani.
Well, what I did was to report on correlation with these hashtags and certain search terms in particular. I wasn't trying to read anyone's mind as to why they used them.
Dopo questo caso, questo studio ha finito.
That of the million plus tweets that you looked at, were connected in some way to Mr. Waldman's statements.
I did eventually, yes.
You did eventually after you read somebody else's report relative to testimony that hasn't been given here.
Well, I did it before my deposition.
All right. You have a demonstrative that counsel played for you. Can we put up plaintiff's 1901 again?
Forza.
This is yours, right?
Correct.
Yeah. the biggest spikes, by far the biggest spikes here, are attributable to what hashtag?
Justice for Johnny Depp hashtag.
Yeah. There's spikes that existed considerably before Mr. Waldman's statement. You were asked about that by counsel.
One of them did. That was the date that Mr. Waldman leaked the audio tape.
The biggest spike was before the statements.
Right, the date he leaked the audio.
And then there were many statements that, or there are many hashtags, or uses of the hashtag, that follow.
Manco I dati.
You'll have to be more specific.
Well, so you looked at 1.2 million of these
Sta,
hashtags,
si
right?
sta ingoiando il fegato.
In your chart, didn't 980,000 of these plus belong to Justice for Johnny Depp?
That sounds about right. You'd have to show me, but I'll take your word for it.
All right. But the vast majority of them were Justice for Johnny Depp.
A majority of them were.
Well, it wasn't the majority so large that you had to draw another chart?
The reason for drawing another chart is because the numbers were high at particular points, so you wouldn't be able to see the other hashtags.
Right, literally.
Avete appena ha dovuto disegnare un altro grafico perché non ci stavano i Justice for Johnny.
In comparison to the hashtag Justice for Johnny Depp.
Right, as I testified, you can barely see them because of the spikes in the Justice for Johnny Depp hashtag, but when you look at the other chart, you can see that those others are still very large numbers.
So you're not offering any opinion as to what caused these spikes.
That's correct.
Right. So you're not opining as to why these spikes are there.
I'm only talking about correlation.
Right. You're talking about a mathematical connection.
That's right.
Right. And you don't purport to be in anybody's head such that you know why they did a particular post with a particular hashtag.
That's correct.
All right. There's a second spike that appears to be in July of 2020.
Yes.
Mi scusi,
the
qual è il
point I
secondo?
was pointing to a different one, but yes.
Yeah.
Questi sono gli
There
altri.
was a trial in the UK in 2020
I'm aware.
and in July.
You're saying it was in July?
No, but as of the time of that spike, there was publicity around a trial, correct?
I don't know how much publicity there was. I know the trial was going on then.
All right.
Poverini gli avvocati di
Number of
lei.
things called out in your chart. relative to
$600 l'ora per sta merda,
17th,
esatto.
February 11th, February 14th. You see all those?
I do.
And
Vabbè.
your chart makes absolutely no reference to and does not identify
Ciao,
the dates of any of the Waldman statements, does it, sir?
No, Miguel.
No, it doesn't call those out, if that's what you're asking.
It calls out a whole bunch of other dates, but nothing relative to the Waldman statements.
Correct.
All right. All right. At some point, you ran searches for additional search terms, hoax, fraud.
Comunque questi avvocati sono dei draghi perché tutte queste domande le ha create mentre il tizio testimoniava. È la prima volta che vedono questi documenti, loro si sono fatti
You
queste
don't
domande
know why
in
those
5
terms
minuti.
appeared, do you?
Lo stanno piegando.
I'm not sure what you mean by that question. Are you asking me?
You could not perform a scientific analysis of the reason why those terms appeared in the tweets you were looking at.
Right, I could only show mathematical correlation.
Right.
90
No
adesso.
correlation, but you don't have any idea why they're there.
I can't get into people's heads.
Right. And just because the tweet contains one of the terms does not mean the tweet was in some way prompted by Mr. Waldman, right?
Well, there are a few things I searched for. The ones you just mentioned, and then the Waldman and Waldman-Young terms. So, it's not that big a stretch to say that it's related to Mr. Waldman if it's his name and Wald Mignon or Minion.
Ma può mai
Wait a
staccarsi
minute,
all'ultimo?
it's the new standard,
dal
it's
piano,
not that
porca
big a stretch?
troia.
No,
Or the
I'm trying to
standard-
Ma
speak.
può mai,
I'm trying to.
bestia maledetta,
Yes.
farmi sta roba qua?
So you're not suggesting that you know why Mr. Waldman's name
Alla fine.
appeared in any of these tweets?
Well, if you look at the tweets that have Wald Mignon, and I looked at a large sample of them.
Wait, just a large sample was 2,000 out of 1,000,002.
No, I looked at more than that of these. But that's another thing that I wouldn't expect to be in controversy. When people are saying that they're part of the Wald Minions or things like that, I would expect everybody to agree without arguing that it has to do with Mr. Waldman.
And nobody asked whether it had to do with Mr. Waldman. I'm wondering, how do you know that it had anything to do with Mr. Waldman's statements?
But I was under the impression, I was informed that nobody really knew who Mr. Waldman was before all of this. So I wouldn't expect it to be anything else. I didn't think it was in controversy.
It wasn't in controversy whether everyone knew who Mr. Waldman was? Is that your testimony?
No, I'm saying it wasn't in controversy that that if somebody was suddenly talking about him, that it had to do with this case.
All right, but again, it's not, did it have to do with this case? It's, did it have to do with the allegedly defamatory statements? You have no idea, do you, sir?
I can't get into anyone's mind. I can only talk about the science of it.
Right. And so you identified all of these hashtags as negative towards Miss Heard, right?
Right.
Justice for Johnny Depp is not negative towards Miss Heard, is it?
No, but the tweets that use that hashtag are.
No, but the hashtag itself, the hashtag that predominates through your analysis is not, in fact, negative towards Miss Heard.
I'm not opining on the hashtag itself. I'm talking about the tweets that contain that hashtag.
But the hashtag itself is not negative.
That's not part of my opinion, one way or the other.
Do you have an opinion as to whether justice for Johnny Depp is a good thing?
That's not part of my assignment.
Okay, but you'll agree with me justice in general is a good thing?
Big fan of justice.
All right, me too. No further questions.
All right, redirect.
Me too, no further question, man.
Okay, yes, sir.
Suoneria del cellulare al mattino.
Okay, yes, sir.
Justice in general is a good thing?
Big fan of justice.
All right, me too.
Me
No
too.
further questions.
No further
All right,
question.
redirect.
Cazzo devi dire, mo?
How many of them were negative toward Miss Heard?
All of them.
And what percentage of the tweets with negative hashtags between April 2020 and January 31st, 2021 contain the terms Waldman or Waldmignon?
Over
Overruled, I'll
over 25%. 1 out of 4.
And in your analysis, how far in time do the tweets containing the terms Waldman or Waldmignon go? Like how far to now?
Well,
Beyond the scope of cross?
He was asking about.
so I think I disclosed at my deposition that I looked further into 2022 and found that it continued to go on. I didn't see any end to it at all.
Non mi te-
And based on your analysis, again, what period of time had more negative tweets against Miss Heard, before or after April 2020?
It was clearly double as many from April to 2021.
And that's even including the February 2020 spike, correct?
That's right. So and that happened before
Ultimi
April,
minuti del
obviously.
VOD di
So even
prima,
if you put that
Doug.
in there, it's still a lot more after April of 2020, and there are fewer months in that time period. I think there are 20 or 15 months in that time period, and 27 months in the first part.
And based on your analysis, what, if any, end do you see to the negative tweets toward Miss Heard?
Objection, no foundation.
Based on his analysis up until the time?
I'll sustain the objection.
Okay. Did you see any, based on your analysis, at the end of the time of your of your analysis, what was happening with the negative tweets toward Ms. Heard?
To continue to go on.
Mr. Chanel, after your cross-examination, have any of your opinions in this matter changed?
No, they've not.
Thank you. Nothing.
All right. All right, so you can have a seat in the courtroom or you're free to go. Okay, sir? Thank you. All right, your next witness? Okay, sure.
Can we approach? Abbiamo il culo un po' rotto. Ragazzi, che posso fare che non mi attacca al piatto sta maledetta stampa di questo materiale nuovo? Che faccio? Faccio il reso? L'H? No, niente l'H. Solo settaggi. E 70 gradi il piatto. Un excursus di questo testimone era un analista portato da Amber per analizzare il trending dei tweet negativi verso di lei, ma non ha dimostrato nulla, anzi ha fatto un'altra autorete galattica dimostrando che in realtà il tweet con maggiore trazione è Justice for Johnny Depp, che non è legato alle accuse di Amber. Chi l'hai visto questo? Let me check it out. No?
My word. Then I became a lawyer representing Amber Heard. Objection, hearsay. Oh my God, I don't have a case. Objection, hearsay. Now I'm ashamed to show my face.
Well, I'm a famous movie star, yeah, life is always fine. I sit down at my penthouse drinking mega pints of wine.
Objection, hearsay.
I don't know why we ever wed.
Objection, hearsay.
Who the hell poops in someone's bed?
I object to everything. I may have an infection. Cause I say I object, the judge says
That was your own question.
objection, hearsay. Court isn't supposed to be this hard. Objection, hearsay. How did I ever pass the bar? Well, just one final question, sir, and this one has been prepped. What is your name?
My name is Johnny Depp.
Objection, hearsay. How can you prove that that's your name? Objection, hearsay. Looks like we win and you are lame. Objection, hearsay.
Justice for Johnny Depp.
Objection, hearsay.
L'hashtag è quello che hanno appena debunkato. Non ho parole, ragazzi. Ci sono autogol dopo autogol dopo autogol dopo autogol dopo autogol. Provato a rallentare la stampa. Sì, mi ha fatto anche questo difetto che mai prima d'ora avevo visto nel back. Qualcuno ha mai visto un difetto del genere? Basa, dimmi, Pieti. Cosa, dove lo trovi? Gigi, cos'è sto difettino? Nozzolo intasato? Può essere. Ventola 100%, la ventola è ottima. Forse temperatura troppo bassa, non riesco a estrudere. Tiro su. E come lo staso? (220) la temperatura. Ah, 100% hit. È appena arrivato, l'ho aperto oggi, acciaio.
Thank you, Your Honor. We will be calling Michelle Mulrooney by deposition designation and restart.
Okay.
Just give us a moment to get that.
Ok, sto suono. Un altro video. Ma chi è quest'altra Karen? Porca di quella puttana. Ma sono tutte uguali. Penso che sia quello, Tecnomouse.
All right, you just want to spell the last name for me?
It's Mulrooney.
All right. Okay.
State your name and address for the record.
Michelle Mulrooney,
Michelle
Los
Maroney.
Angeles, California, 90067.
Non si chiama Karen?
Ms.
È incredibile.
What is your occupation?
I'm a partner at Venable LLP, an attorney practice.
Could you just please describe give me a brief description of your educational background and work history?
Okay, I attended USC and received my undergraduate degree in 1982. And then I again attended USC and received my law degree in 1985. I then worked for Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher until 1991. And then I worked for an entertainment law firm that was originally called Armstrong Hirsch when I joined it, then later morphed into several names. And then in
Scusate, chat, muoio se ascolto ancora sta tizia.
I joined Venable LLP as a partner.
Thank you. What are your areas of practice and expertise?
I'm head of the estate planning, the West Coast estate planning group for Venable.
And does that estate planning involve any aspect of marital estate planning, such as things like prenups and postnups, prenuptials, postnuptials?
Yes, we frequently do prenups, cohabitation, and postnup agreements for our clients.
Would you please briefly describe what a prenuptial and a postnuptial is?
A prenuptial agreement is where spouses contract on the economics of their marriage before they are married, and they discuss things as the nature, and they contract the things as the nature of the property, community separate, etc., and also things like spousal support. And in a postnup, the clients do that after they're married. They contract on the same issues.
Do you regularly represent actors?
Yes.
La mia ventola marca una blower.
Did there come a time when Amber Heard contacted you for representation respecting a prenup or a postnup agreement?
At some point, I was contacted about an Amber Heard prenup.
Ms. Mulroney, I'm going to show you what has been marked as exhibit number 3, and it's an email from you to a Dana Lowry.
Cazzo mi hai portato? Mi ci va un attimo a capire sta roba.
Yes.
And could you please tell us who Dana Lowry is?
She's a family law attorney practicing in Los Angeles.
And this is dated Monday,
Lo
February
tieni
2,
più caldo il marker?
2015, and says, I look forward to working with you. Please send me, this is from you, please send me the bullet points for the economics of the deal. When you are back in the office tomorrow, I will have Amber's business manager get her financial information to me ASAP. I also like to exchange 2
Grazie,
years of tax
Greatech.
returns,
Grazie
but
mille.
not attach them. Is this your general practice? Let me know. Think. Who did Dana Lowry represent?
Johnny Depp.
I take it Amber in the actual document is Amber Heard. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And if I just direct your attention to the top of the email where it says February
Grazie Sergio.
February 2, 2015, what, if anything, does this do to refresh your recollection on when approximately you were contacted about representing Amber Heard in connection with the prenup?
It makes the approximate date more clear to me.
Okay. And based on this, when approximately were you contacted to represent Amber Heard in connection with the prenup or postnup?
The early part of February, the late part of January, or the early part of February 2015.
Ms. Mulrooney, I'm going to ask you to take a look at what has been marked as exhibit number 4.
Ma lei cosa sta cercando di dimostrare?
An email from you to Dana Lowry, which is Mr. Depp's counsel, correct?
During this time period, correct.
And it's dated Tuesday, February 3. And I'm going to scroll down first so we get the earliest part of it. And the first part of it is an email.
Ma passami il link, lo metto diretto, Sergio, mandami un attimo il link.
To you, dated February 3rd at 10:13, and says J/A deal points. Do you know what J/A means? I'm going to take you, first of all, to the bottom part, which is the J/deal points. Do you have an understanding of what J/A means?
I believe it means Johnny/Amber deal points.
Absent a prenuptial agreement or a postnuptial agreement, is California what we call a common law property state?
No,
What is it?
it's a community property state.
Okay, and what does that mean?
Generally means that all earnings after the date of marriage are owned 50. Each party has an undivided 50% interest in
Comodo.
those earnings. Yes.
What was your understanding of the purpose of the confidentiality agreement?
It's very standard when you're doing a prenuptial agreement or a postnuptial agreement when either
Comodo,
party
vero?
is disclosing their assets.
Sì,
that they
Crytek.
ask for a confidentiality agreement.
You respond on February 17, Dana, I have forwarded to Amber. She is filming a movie, but hope to connect with her by the end of the week. I will keep trying to move forward. I'm asking you, what
Non
do
che
you
io
mean by
sappia,
I will
Mac.
keep trying to move forward?
I assume I meant that we're trying to get a postnuptial agreement signed between the parties, and that's what I was hired for.
Show you what has been marked as exhibit number 7. And I'm going to start again with going down.
Mi scusi, ma cos'è che stiamo dimostrando di nuovo?
Here. And it says
Non è cambiato nulla, Mac.
on February 17, that's the same email we've seen a couple times now where she's attaching the confidentiality agreement, telling you she'll have a draft post-nup agreement, but she's getting the signed confidentiality agreement first. And then I'm going to direct your attention to the very top part, and that is Wednesday, February 18. And it's from you to Dana Lowry, and it says Amber is sending the signed confidentiality agreement to me. I assume I will receive all the underlying financials and a list of anticipated future revenue streams and documentation pertaining thereto. What did you mean by underlying financials and a list of anticipated future revenue streams and documentation pertaining thereto?
I mean, this is typical for an actor. They have profit participations, back ends. I wanted to
Ho capito,
have a
Anna.
list of what his future revenue would be. He might have had movies booked that he would render services after marriage. I just wanted to see the pro forma.
Che brutta cosa i soldi, ragazzi. Fate come me. Avetene pochi così non avete problemi.
Back end is either profit participations or royalties. Sometimes it's box office bonuses. You just have to look at the underlying agreement on each
Che brutta cosa.
movie, TV show,
Tutti i
etc.
problemi dovuti per i soldi.
To track what the revenue
Non
will
ne
be
hai,
from
meglio.
each project.
And why is that relevant?
Want to know what they're going to make during the marriage.
Ricordatevi,
Wanna know the
un
income.
fucile è sempre meglio di una cucina.
And those are all components of what they make during the marriage?
Correct.
Okay. All right, and then you said, I can't really comment
Avete 30 euro che vi avanzano? Scatola di 308.
What document were you referring to there?
The post-nup agreement that I anticipated she would send.
How much time
Hai fatto bene, Acciaio.
between when you were sent the confidentiality agreement for Amber Heard to sign and when
Davvero? Ha un dojo,
back to
Shumi?
counsel for Mr. Depp that Amber is sending the signed confidentiality agreement to you?
The next day.
What, if any, communication did you receive from
La mia
Mr.
ragazza ha un
Depp
gimmino. Gambero.
in connection with
Vecchio, che è di suo papà, ma lo ruba sempre lei.
I received one telephone call.
And whom did you receive that telephone call from?
Mr. Depp.
Please describe the telephone call from Mr. Depp.
My recollection is that he was very mean.
Cattivissimo.
That he called me names and that he fired me on behalf of them.
When you say that he was very mean, what did you mean?
Well, my only exact recollection is he called me a bitch.
Mr. Depp called you a bitch on that telephone call?
In che senso esiste, Gambero?
What, if any, observations did you make?
Ma hai parlato col suo
during the
manager?
telephone call from Mr. Depp, during which time he called you a bitch?
I thought he was under the influence.
Why did you think that?
He was slurring his words and his speech pattern was similar to my children's speech pattern when they were under influence. I was just extremely rattled by the call. I was on the phone for a very short time with him because he was represented by
Lei si chiama
counsel, and
Michelle Karen
I didn't want to
Mulrooney.
be rude and hang up, but I told him I had to hang up. Like after 2 or 3 minutes after I realized what was happening, it took me very off guard, and that's all I remember is that it really shook me up.
After that phone call, did you perform any further services for Ms. Heard in connection with the postnuptial agreement?
Sì, lo so allora, Gambero, sapevo. No, quello della mia ragazza è normale.
Do you recall ever seeing a postnuptial draft agreement?
No.
Has either Ms. Heard or
Esatto.
Mr. Depp contacted you at any time after
Karen gliel'ho aggiunto io però,
call
Stassi.
with Mr. Depp respecting pursuing a postnuptial agreement?
No.
Aquaman!
If anyone was paying your legal services.
I don't recall.
Was it your understanding that Mr. Depp had the authority to fire you?
No.
Did you tell him that?
I don't recall.
And isn't it true that he wouldn't have had the authority to fire you even if he were paying for your legal services? True?
True.
Ma
What,
cupino.
if any, communications did you have with Dana Lowy about your conversation with Mr. Depp after the conversation with Mr. Depp?
I don't recall specifically.
What do you recall generally, if anything?
I do recall that I told her that I was no longer representing him. And I don't know if I did that in writing. Somehow she knew.
But and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you testified that Mr. Depp did not have the authority to fire you, correct?
Correct.
Ms. Mulrooney, when did your attorney-client relationship with Ms. Heard relating to a potential post-nuptial agreement terminate?
Shortly after that phone call.
Ma un testimone
When you say
utile.
shortly after that phone call, can you give us a time frame of how long it was after the phone call?
La giuria ci avrà due
Within a few
coglioni.
days, could be one.
He didn't have the power to fire you, correct?
Correct.
Do you have any recollection of ever receiving any more communications from Dana Lowry furthering the post-nuptial agreement after Johnny Depp called you and told you he was firing you on behalf of Amber and called you names?
No substantive, I recall that there was no more substantive conversations.
Is there any question in your mind that it was Mr. Depp who called you?
No.
Ms. Moon, the next witness.
Yes, Your Honor, we'd like to call the Disney corporate representative.
All right.
Come testimonianza o qui? C'è un altro video?
Could you please state your name and your business address for the record?
Tina Newman, Walt Disney Studios Motion
Tina
Picture
Karen Newman?
Live Action, 500 South Buena Vista Street, Burbank, California, 91521.
And what is your current occupation?
I'm a production executive.
And what is your job title?
That is my title, production executive. I work in the live action feature division for Disney.
Is it your understanding you're testifying?
E mo sono cazzi della Disney.
Yes.
Were you involved in
Sono
the
cazzi
gathering
della
of the documents
Disney.
responsive to the documents subpoenaed to Disney?
Yes, I did provide some documentation to Alec and his group from our production group.
I'm going to ask you to take a look at what I've just highlighted under topic number. It's subpoena duces tecum.
20 euro, Filippo.
And it asks for documents relating to this case, in fact, and then it also says specifically, this specifically includes the op-ed by Ms. Heard and any impact it may have had on the above. And that includes, as it's defined above, including the business relationship with Mr. Depp, including considering Mr. Depp for
Glielo hanno già fatto,
Disney
Invicti.
or future Pirates of the Caribbean role, or a lesser or greater role, a different role, or a different production. Do you recall seeing in any of the documents you reviewed, either being involved as the corporate designee or in preparing as the corporate designee, do you recall seeing an op-ed written by Ms. Heard?
Sì, Invicti.
No.
Do you recall in your preparation as the corporate designee of Disney and your review of the documents that were produced by Disney?
Ma non puoi prenderla direttamente da Amazon,
any
Filippo.
document that referred in any manner to the op-ed written by Ms. Heard?
Non funziona Amazon da te?
Do you remember seeing in any of the documents you reviewed that were produced by Disney in response to these subpoena duces?
Comunque no, non posso perché non è che io prendo 25 euro. Bisogna pagare Amazon. Io non posso venderti una maglietta
I don't
direttamente.
recall that, no.
Did you have any discussions with anyone at Disney about any future
Cazzo, t'hanno
Pirates
tolto
of the
Amazon i tuoi dal
Caribbean
router.
role, a lesser or greater role, a different role, or a different production?
No.
Ma non mi dire,
Did you have any
Sergio.
discussions with anyone at Disney
Non mi dire.
about the impact of the op-ed by Ms. Heard on the relationship between Disney and Mr. Depp including considering Mr. Depp for any work with Disney, any future Pirates of the Caribbean role, a lesser or greater role, a different role, or a different production?
No.
Non ho seguito, cosa ha detto?
No.
Non ho seguito, chat.
Mr. Depp is being considered for a role in Pirates 6.
No.
And when you say no, I think I have to probably ask clarification. Does that mean you don't know one way or the other, or he is not being considered?
I don't know one way or the other.
Non sa un cazzo.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that decision doesn't fall within my job responsibility.
Grazie, è stato un piacere. Prossimo testimone.
It's the best way to say it.
So what is the knowledge you have about Pirates 6?
Like I said, I just know that it's a project that's possibly in development at the studio. That's it.
Do you know whether anyone at Disney has ever even read the op-ed written by Ms. Heard?
No.
Are you aware of anyone else at Disney who has knowledge of the topic areas in the deposition notice, that's deposition exhibit number 2, that beyond what you know?
I can't honestly say. I can't speak for someone else. Like I explained earlier, my knowledge and what my job functionality is at the studio, at plateaus, and there are people that I work under, and those particular persons may or may not have more knowledge, but I can't speak on behalf of them.
Non ne so un cazzo.
Is Disney aware that Mr. Depp has testified under oath that
non è il mio lavoro.
take another Pirates of the Caribbean franchise role for $300 million and a million alpacas?
No.
Would Disney entertain paying Mr. Depp more than $300 million and provide him with more than a million alpacas to be able to obtain his
Che cazzo di domanda è? Ma che cazzo di domanda è?
Caribbean role?
No.
I'm sure you would have been marked as deposition.
Per caso Disney voleva pagarlo con più di $300.000 e 1 milione di alpaca? Per caso?
He was our co-chairman.
Of Disney?
Yes.
And Alan Bergman, who's he?
Same. He's the other co-chairman of Disney.
Ma per forza, Vive, ma sta pensando, ma questa ha avuto la faccia di fare una domanda del genere?
Was the president?
It's our
No, me lo devo rivedere, devo rivederlo.
Alan services for any future Pirates of the Caribbean role?
No.
I'm going to show you what have been marked as $1 and provide him with more than a million alpacas to be able to obtain his services for any future Pirates of the Caribbean role.
No.
Sei scassato proprio.
Missing millions.
Sei scassato proprio.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any understanding as to why Angela Shaw was sending this communication to this group, the 2 co-chairmen, the president, vice president of production, head of communications on this particular day?
I don't know what the intent of the email is, but obviously we have a relationship as a company with Johnny, so I assume that's why she may be bringing it to their attention.
All right, and just to take that a little bit further, given that Disney has a relationship with Johnny Depp, if there is publicity relating to Johnny Depp, whether it be positive or negative, that would be relevant to Disney, would it not?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say how it's relevant to Disney, but given that Angela is part of communications, it's her job to, keep the studio abreast, I guess, anything concerning the company, so that's about as far as I can read into it.
Okay. And so that's your interpretation of why Angela Shaw sent this to that group of people, was to keep them apprised of this particular article on Johnny Depp. Would you agree?
Yeah, that would be my assumption. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to take a look at what has been labeled as exhibit number 53, and it is Disney 114 through 137. And I'm going to ask you if you recognize this document.
Well, it looks like an internal email. It may have been part of the disclosure documents.
This one's from Alan Horn, and I think we've identified Alan Horn before. Well, actually, it starts with, let's start down here. On June 21st, 2018, all right, and then it has a reply from Sean Bailey, sad. Do you see that?
Yes.
What was Mr. Bailey's position with Disney on June 21st, 2018?
I believe he was the president then.
Solo.
Okay,
He may have been the EVP. I don't know.
okay. And then we have an email at the top. It's to Sean Bailey, CC Janelle Tipton.
Solo il presidente.
And then it has some copies to some other people. It's from Alan Horn. I believe we said he was one of the co-directors. Is that correct?
Co-chairman.
Co-chairman. Okay. And Alan Bergman.
The other co-chairman.
Okay. And do you have any recollection of ever reading the Rolling Stones article about Johnny Depp back in this time frame?
I honestly don't remember if I ever read this document. I may have.
Do you have any understanding of why this would be sent from Alan Horn to these other individuals on the top?
Again, same as before, just because of the fact that we have a relationship with Johnny. So they may have determined it was important to bring it to their attention.
All right, Ms. Newman, I'm going to show you what has been marked as deposition exhibit number 54.
Povero stronzo. Come nato a marcio.
Yes, it looks like a email.
Please tell me, please describe it for me.
It's an email, well, it started from Scott to myself.
Sta guardando le prove.
In Post Finance, and then I replied to Scott. So it looks like an email exchange between the two of us.
All right, and you said Scott Sellers is in Post Finance?
Correct.
What is that?
He handles all finances once film goes into post-production on any given picture. Also reporting for the studio, internal reporting, finances.
All right. And this is July 14, 2018 that he's sending this to you, correct?
Yes.
Sta guardando a lei da una parte e le prove dall'altra, allo schermo splittato.
Rolling Stone, the trouble with Johnny Depp?
I mean, to be honest, I don't really remember much about the story, but obviously I must have looked at it and commented.
Right, and
Let's see.
in fact, you commented depressing. Do you see
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Okay. And just to go back to refreshing your recollection on the template, do you see that it has importance and received on this?
Rottenborn ha soppresso un turbo sbadiglio.
Ms. Newman, I'm going to ask you to take a look at what has been marked as deposition exhibit number 56. And it is a document also produced by Disney, and there's the date stamps, Disney 167 through 177. And I'm gonna ask you to take a look at the top there. This is to Alan Bergman from, and it has THR's Today and Entertainment. Do you understand what that is?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to turn down to 169. It says Johnny Depp's legal team prepares for court hearing about Amber Heard abuse claims. The actors' camp is previewing the evidence that it will present in an upcoming court hearing in the UK this fall, tied to a defamation lawsuit against the Sun for an article that labeled the actor a, quote, wife beater, end of quote, Katie Kalani reports. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you have a recollection of learning about this and reading about the UK case in this time frame? We're talking October 2018?
No.
I may have seen a headline come across my desk in the same manner as Alan received it, but that's probably as far as it went.
Ms. Newman, I'm going to show you what has been marked as deposition number 60. And it's dated November 5, 2020. And it says Disney reportedly scraps plans for Depp's POTC 6. I'm assuming that's Pirates of the Caribbean 6 return. You see that? Question was, did you see it?
Yes, I see it.
As you sit here today, are you aware of any document in Disney's emails or in their IT system or
Viene
anywhere
pagata ad ore.
that contains Amber Heard's op-ed from December of 2018?
Ma che cazzo di domanda è?
I mean, no, not that I'm aware.
Are you aware of any decision maker within Disney who has ever said they are not casting Johnny Depp in Pirates 6 or any other role because of Amber Heard's op-ed?
No.
Are you aware of any decision maker outside of Disney? And by this,
Il tono di questo avvocato mi manda in bestia.
Directors, people of that ilk, who have ever said they were not considering Mr. Depp for
Ma io che cazzo ne so, scusi?
because of Amber Heard's op-ed from December 2018.
No.
Grazie. Un altro ottimo lavoro.
How much time?
We have an 11-minute one.
Okay, that's fine. What's your next witness?
Ellen Barkin.
All right.
Ma un altro video.
K-I-N.
Thank you.
E un altro video. No, ma no.
Good morning, Ms. Barkin.
Good morning.
I think the first thing that would be very short but very simple and clean for the record is if
Chi
you
è
could
Ellen
just
Barkin?
describe kind of your career background. I know it's very lengthy, but just give a kind of brief summary of kind of when you started acting
Plus,
and
plus,
what you've done
plus.
in your career.
Una bagaiscia.
I started acting professionally about 26 or 7. And
Ma chi è?
I did theater, television, movies, lots of them. That's what I did for 40 years.
È un progetto multimedia.
And, in the course of your career acting in theater, television, movies, etc., did you come to meet a person by the name of Johnny Depp?
Yes.
Can you specify in time, Ms. Barkin, when you met him?
I would say 1990.
And upon or after meeting him, did there come a time when you became friends?
Yes.
And can you describe how that happened?
We just developed a friendship over time that lasted, I guess, if we met in the 90s, maybe 10 years or a little less.
And fair to say that Mr. Depp at the time was also an actor, a professional actor?
Yes.
Were you...
Ma Anna, ma come fai a sapere tutta sta roba?
Film, stage, or TV productions with Mr. Depp?
Yes, I was in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
How often would you see Mr. Depp?
When I lived in New York, usually whenever I go to LA,
1990.
LA, I'd see him once a week.
1990.
The friendship went.
Ah, quindi 36 anni fa,
living on
ok.
different coasts.
And did there come a time when your friendship with Mr. Depp became more than
Sta rispondendo in chat.
in nature?
Yes.
And at what point in time did your relationship with Mr. Depp take a romantic turn?
After I had moved to Hollywood. And he, you know,
La giuria sta schiumando. Sono a stellone.
Yes. 1994.
When you said switch the buttons, can you tell me what you meant by that?
The friendship
Sandra
went from a
Mondaini.
purely platonic friendship to a romantic.
Che barba che...
At that point in 1994, when the relationship turned romantic, to your
Can I change that to sexual?
to sexual.
Thank you.
For how long did your relationship with
Ma vaffanculo, veramente! Posso chiamarla sessuale? No, perché me lo buttava proprio. Cioè, non era che c'era del romanticismo, era proprio che me lo buttava. Vorrei cambiare... Posso chiamarla pornografica?
And
Grazie.
during that period, how often would you see Mr. Depp? That period when it was sexual.
I'd say I'd see him 3 or 4 times a week.
And again, I'm not looking to pry into private
Anche
details,
questa
but
per
can you
niente
tell
di
me
parte.
where you would see him. Just give me some sense of that.
Yeah, he would come to my house, or I would go to his house.
In both houses in LA?
Yes, about 10-minute drive apart from each other.
And at either when you were at his house,
Devo vedere com'era nel 1994 perché non me lo spiego.
where you didn't stay the night, or where you were at his house when you did stay the night, were there other people in the house who saw you there? Who would those people be?
He had an assistant. His sister. That's all I can remember now.
Do you recall the name of the assistant?
I don't know his name. He was referred to as Pig.
He was referred to by whom as Pig?
Johnny Depp.
At any point that you were either initially friends and then
Può
sexual
essere.
with Mr. Depp, were you
Può
able
essere,
to
può
aware
essere.
that he
Forse.
drank to excess?
I was always aware.
Okay, and can you explain how you were aware of that?
He was drunk all the time. A lot
L'età
of the time.
invecchiata come solo il vino buono
And that
sa
would apply
fare.
both to when you were initially friends and then later when it became sexual.
Yeah.
And what was he drunk? What with your understanding, what had he drunk to become drunk?
He was a red wine drinker.
Non ci credo nemmeno, Noki, è solo per fare audience, perché tutti quanti vogliono quello, ma ti assicuro di no.
In addition to alcohol, were you aware at that time that Mr. Depp was taking any prescription medication?
No.
Vabbè, Johnny ha 60 anni ormai pure lui. Sì, ma guardalo, cazzo!
Mr. Barkin, for illegal substances.
Yes.
Same question. And what illegal substances?
Hallucinogenics.
Cioè, guardalo!
Cocaine. Marijuana.
Hallucinogenics. Can you say specifically what those were?
I don't really
Scusatemi,
know. He called me and told me he was tripping.
With respect to any of that, hallucinogenics, cocaine or marijuana. did
Nel
you do any of that?
1994 era così.
Yes.
More than once?
All the time.
When you say all the time, how many times, again, in the period that you were both first friends and sexual, then sexual with Mr. Depp, do you think you saw him?
I couldn't even tell you. I mean, I just know he was always drinking. And
Cioè, poteva andargli peggio, no?
But would it be fair to say more than at least dozens of times?
yeah.
Cazzo, guarda questa!
Over the full course, oh yeah.
Now, did you ever observe, Ms. Barkin, Mr. Depp's behavior change when he
Così sono buoni
or
tutti.
used more drugs?
I did not.
So he was kind of the same all the time, fair to say?
It was not the same.
Torno subito poi.
He was high.
Did there come a time, Ms. Barkin, when Mr. Depp acted in a way that was out of control with you?
Yes. Mr. Depp threw a wine bottle across the room, the hotel room on one instance in Las Vegas while we were shooting Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
was something about to happen?
A fight was going on.
Between you and Mr. Depp?
No.
Who was the fight between?
Between Johnny Depp and his friends in the room, the assistant. Honestly, I don't remember.
And the bottle that, do you remember sitting here today, Ms. Barkin, whether the bottle was full of wine or empty?
I don't.
Sitting here today, Ms. Barkin, do you remember whether the bottle...
Mi scusi, stiamo cercando di capire se lui da ragazzino tra 24, 20, cos'è, 2022, 2190, se lui 32 anni fa ha lanciato una bottiglia? Stiamo cercando di capire se 32 anni fa ha lanciato una bottiglia? Ho capito. Colpevole.
And sitting here today, if the bottle had hit you, would it have injured you?
Sure.
Ms. Barkin, was it your understanding back then that he was throwing the bottle at you?
I don't know why he threw the bottle.
And was it, when he threw it, was it in your direction?
Yes.
Were there other people standing around you?
Yes.
So he threw it in your direction at a group of people?
Yes.
Whose hotel room was it?
His, Johnny Depp's.
Who broke off?
He did.
How did it come about that Mr. Depp broke off your relationship?
I went to go home. There was a big goodbye, crying, a lot of jealous, don't do this, don't do that. And I never heard from him again after that.
And did Mr. Depp not want you to go back to Los Angeles at the time?
Yes, he didn't want me to go. I was only supposed to be there for 2 days. I stayed for longer.
And you just referenced, you just used the word jealous. How did that come up? What did he say that indicated to you that he was jealous?
He's just a jealous man, controlling. Where are you going? Who are you going with? What did you do last night? I had a scratch on my back once that got him very, very angry because he insisted it came from me having sex with a person who wasn't him.
During the time that you were in a sexual relationship with Mr. Depp, was it common for him to say things to you about being controlling, to use your words, or being jealous of you?
Yeah, very common.
And when, in these instances, when Mr. Depp became jealous...
Sto cercando di capire qual è il problema,
Angry?
Yeah. And demanding.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go and take our afternoon recess. Please do not discuss the case and do not do any outside research, okay? We'll see you back in 15 minutes.
Ok, grazie. Testimonianza chiave. E infatti, Sergio. Per fortuna che c'era lei, ragazzi, io sto cercando di capire perché questo è un problema simile.
3:45, does that give you time to be ready? Okay, all right, 3:45.
Metto un po' di musica. No. 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 Meglio? Under extrusion. Potrebbe essere che un filamento del cazzo. Che mi fa? L'ho buttato un pezzo, te lo faccio vedere. Aspetta. Grazie Leo. La parete è spessissima, eh. PETG, sì. No, è della Sunlu, ma ci ho già stampato tantissimo con questo materiale. Grazie, Make.
Come promesso ieri, grazie per avermi fatto conoscere e innamorare di un gioco così complesso Bisexual Pride.
Non è questo. Questo! Eccolo qua! Eccolo qua! Diametro del filamento. È a posto, penso. È perfetto. Hot and for the breeze. È a posto. Extrusion multiplier. Penso che sia l'equivalente del flow, vero? Sotto estrusione. È l'equivalente di flow, giusto? Io gliene do un sacco, io gli do il 20%. Può essere, Drain, anche quello può essere. Però il fatto è che tutti gli altri dettagli sono a posto. È proprio l'unico dettaglio che va di merda. ...60 non è mica veloce. Primo layer lo fa a 10. No, dai, non è mica veloce. La ventola l'ho messa a 50 come dicevate voi, ma non sono convintissimo. Stampa un cubetto, un perimetro, ma attacca. Ventola 50 troppo basse, te pareva? Banana, rim. Qua è un problema di flow. Vediamo se lo stampa così. Che me le devo anche scrivere ste cose di stampa 3D e avevo il taccuino della stampa 3D da qualche parte. Chissà dove è finito il taccuino della stampa. Fammi vedere qua. No. 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 Aiuto. Quanti ne ho? Tanti. Ragazzi, sono un appassionato di taccuini, va bene? No. Sapete che forse è quello che poi ho iniziato a usare per il survival rate? No, questo è nato con Twitch, ok. Vabbè, me lo segno qui. Forse era qua all'inizio. Non volevo una cosa apposta. Chat. I miei taccuini, ma va, figurati. Chat, dove cacchio me la scrivo sta roba? Ci va un taccuino apposta. Vabbè, lo scriviamo in quello del survival rate. Ah, era quello del survival rate, vedi? Qualcosa me l'ho scritto qua. Vabbè. Infatti, un taccuino piccino da tenere vicino alla stampante. Vabbè, per adesso scrivo qua. Cosa abbiamo stampato adesso? Allora, Sunlu Pieti. Boh, speriamo. No, Marantax, Marro. Marro. Che pezzo è cosa, Vatican? Ah, Encore di Jekyll. Encore. Come va? Sembra a posto adesso. Vedremo. Quello che stavo provando a fare è sempre una cosa per misurare i proiettili. È giusto, Marro, è giusto. Ho realizzato questi due componenti che sostanzialmente monti sul calibro in questo modo. È identico per me, Marro. E sono uno che non prendeva mai appunti a scuola, ma è una cosa che ho imparato a fare dopo. Lo monti sul calibro così, tari il calibro su questa distanza qua. Dopodiché infili il proiettile in quel foro e misuri una lunghezza e poi si chiama comparatore, ti faccio vedere. Ti faccio vedere più o meno perché questi episodi vanno su YouTube, quindi non ti facciamo vedere la punta, va? Misuro 1, 0, adesso tolgo questo, ne metto un altro, e vedo che rimane 0, altrimenti era un pochino di più o un pochino di meno, e questo indica che in questo caso questo misuratore mi misura la lunghezza del bossolo sulla spalla, quindi mi serve a capire se sono più lunghi o più corti i bossoli. Quest'altro invece serve per misurare la distanza la pressione della pallottola. E niente, sto facendo semplicemente questo aggeggio che ti ho appena fatto vedere, ma in un unico gadget. Semplicemente in un unico gadget. È una cosa che vendono, fatta ovviamente in maniera più professionale, ma costa $60, io la stampo per 50 centesimi. Ma per quanto li riempi di polvere? No, allora, serve per la ricarica più avanti. Io in questo caso me lo sono fatto perché i colpi che ho non sono di qualità eccellente, quindi vado a selezionarmeli tutti misurando e cercando di sparare quelli più simili tra di loro. Cioè, ma benvenuto nel mondo delle armi, Vatican. Meccanica di precisione. Comunque, mi serve per catalogare i proiettili e dividerli tra i più simili tra di loro in modo da cercare di sparare in gara quelli più simili, per avere la minor differenza possibile tra un colpo e l'altro, in modo che dovrebbe stringere la rosata, dovrebbe aumentare la ripetibilità dei tiri, non so se mi spiego. Ragazzi, voi non avete idea. Sapete quanto costa il cacciavite dinamometrico per i fucili? Li peso anche... Allora, dovrei pesare la polvere che c'è dentro e le palle. Pesarli finiti con il bossolo e l'innesco ha poco senso. Potrei, ma ha poco senso perché potrebbero esserci delle differenze di peso nel bossolo che non hanno nulla a che vedere dopo. 100. Quello che ho io che è economica, 100. Ma ragazzi, Nel mondo delle armi tutto costa caro. No, va benissimo questa Templarum. Non è una questione di errore di 47 micron, è un comparatore. Non deve essere super preciso, serve a comparare, non a misurare. Un tornietto magari. Quello sì. Ed è il motivo per cui qui a fianco a me c'è il bottiglione di VD40. Vi faccio vedere una boccetta e voi mi dite quanto costa. Se la trovo, eh. No, ovviamente non la trovo. Vabbè, comunque una boccettina di lubrificante alta così, 30 euro. No, non la trovo. Sono disordinato. Vediamo un po' che hanno da dire, va? Esatto, Vatican.
Okay, are we ready for the jury? Oh, yes. Okay, you want to approach with...
E figurati. Boccettina di lubrificante da 30 euro e io l'ho persa, ovviamente. Chissà dove cacchio l'ho messa. Ah no, lo so dove l'ho messa. Ce l'ho nel kit di riparazione, arrivo. €30. 35 millilitri. 1 euro al millilitro, praticamente. Ho in mano 30 euro, esatto. No, quello è un olio ceramico particolare con delle ottime proprietà di resistenza al calore, bla 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 bla. Pauciala, è pauciato. Alla fine è l'olio di Clean, eh? Meno del Super Attack. Questo è vero, perché effettivamente questo cosino di Super Attack l'ho pagato tipo 7 euro 5 grammi. Però aspetta, bisogna vedere quanto sono 5 grammi di Attack. Millilitri e grammi sono cose diverse, no? Sergio. Questo anche costa caro, ragazzi. Aspetta un po' di musica, va? Ovviamente. Riprendiamo? Sì. Quello blu, quello blu. Il giudice è devastato.
Your next witness?
Se è una deposizione.
Your Honor, we call Dr. Alan Blaustein,
All right.
Blaustein.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, and I'm asking questions first. I believe I
Erca
may be the only one
puttana!
asking questions.
All right.
Basta! Basta! Ma chi è?
Please provide your full name. Alan Scott Blaustein. You're a doctor, correct?
Correct.
And you're a psychiatrist?
Yes.
How long have you been a psychiatrist for?
Since 1987.
No, cioè veramente.
And you went to medical school?
Yes.
What medical school did you go to?
Northwestern
La
University.
tattica dello spinning. Ma questo è un assedio, cioè. Questo è un assedio.
You understood that Mr. Depp had substance dependence issues, is that correct?
È una palla immensa oggi e ieri. Oh, io voglio il succo.
Do you recall what substance issues,
È un pornatore.
what substances Mr. Depp had issues with?
Marijuana, alcohol.
Sì, fuma, è terribile, lo sappiamo.
I believe.
Did you ever have an understanding that Mr. Depp had anxiety syndrome?
I knew Mr. Depp had anxiety.
Michele Placido.
And how did you come to be aware that Mr. Depp had anxiety?
She told me that.
Do you recall having any
Ma
conversation
ed
with
è
Mr.
più
Depp
vecchio
bipolar?
o Big Boss di Metal Gear?
Some
Big
question
Boss!
about bipolar disorder diagnosis, but I do not remember any specifics about the discussion.
Do you recall having a conversation with Mr. Depp about a bipolar diagnosis?
No.
Sai che non lo so, Darker.
Mr. Depp acknowledged that should be changed.
Certainly his drug use and his turning to drugs to help relieve a lot of the psychic pain that he
Ma
was
questa
experiencing.
deposizione è del 76 o...
Did you agree that he had
Di che anno è sta
that Mr. Depp had
deposizione?
issues with anger?
Sembra vedere una prova dell'era
I would
atomica.
say that he expressed having issues with anger.
Mr. Depp expressed having issues with anger?
Yes.
Did Mr. Depp express having issues with anger towards Amber?
Tutto.
He expressed having anger
Gennaio 2022.
towards her. Yes.
Do you recall what reasons Mr. Depp told you as to why he was expressing anger towards Amber?
He knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent.
I can recall now he expressed feelings of jealousy. But I don't remember if it was about affairs.
Oppenheimer.
Any more detail about what Mr. Depp was feeling jealousy toward Amber about?
No.
Ragazzi, è Prapor!
In working with Mr. Depp,
È Prapor!
did you see that Mr. Depp had any issues with patience?
Yes, he was impatient.
What is your understanding about issues that Mr. Depp had with Amber?
It was a very chaotic relationship with a lot of fluctuations and ups and downs and lots of difficulty in emotional expressions and lots of anger in both places and, you know, high intensity affect and emotional expression.
Prapor!
A lot of love, a lot of disappointment, a lot of fears.
Dr. Blaustein, I'm showing you what's been marked as Blaustein Exhibit 3. Do you recognize this document?
Che è sta cosa?
What is it?
It's my invoice billing document.
Ah, soldi!
Your files.
Correct.
And you keep this document in the ordinary course of business.
Correct.
And this billing invoice is for Johnny Depp, correct?
Correct.
Sentiamo di quant'è la fattura,
So
va?
it says 10 to 14 from your billing records. Would this be is this your understanding the first time you met with Mr. Depp?
By phone, yes.
Circa $500 al giorno piglia
In
questo.
total, if we look at the
Circa
number of
500 al
sessions
giorno.
you either met or spoke to Mr. Depp that weren't
Come ti
canceled or you
ascolta
didn't
lui?
show up.
Come ti ascolta lui non ti ascolta nessuno.
My count, it comes to 18 times you met with Mr. Depp. Does that sound about right?
Spaccia, no, uno psicologo.
Did you have any concerns about any of the
$500 per fare.
medications that Mr. Depp was taking?
I had concerns about the Adderall that I would have expressed to him.
And what were the concerns about the Adderall?
Psichiatra, scusatemi.
Again, I don't recall the specific conversations, but I would have been asking about
10 clienti al giorno, tacci sua.
ADHD or under what circumstances he would take
Davvero,
it if he wasn't currently working.
Did you ever talk to Mr. Depp about what he did when Marilyn Manson?
Ma sì, dai. Mica, ma 500! Cazzo c'entra Marilyn Manson, mo?
When you were working with Mr. Depp, did you have any understanding whether Mr. Depp was still abusing drugs and alcohol or not?
Yes.
But you do recall that there were times in your working with Mr. Depp where you
Psichiatra,
had breakthrough
psichiatra.
uses of drugs or alcohol.
Yeah, that his relative sobriety was not complete, yes.
And that's what you mean by breakthrough.
Ma non è più economico
usage,
non
that
drogarsi?
his sobriety, Mr. Depp's sobriety was not complete.
Well, relative sobriety, again, I said relative sobriety because he did continue to use marijuana throughout, almost entirely throughout the time that I knew him, with a short time exception, I think. So I called it relative sobriety, then there'd be some breakthrough uses of other substances.
Okay. And when you say breakthrough usage, just so everyone understands, what do you mean by that?
He was trying to be sober, he was working on sobriety, and by breakthrough uses, I mean sobriety would mean the abstinence
Fixato, boys.
using the substance, and so the breakthrough would
Fixato.
be on a particular time he would have used a substance that he was trying to be sober of, abstinent of.
Okay. So in addition to marijuana, in the time you saw Mr. Depp from October of 2014 through January,
Hai ragione, Dani.
there were times where Mr. Depp broke his sobriety with drugs or alcohol in addition to marijuana, correct?
Nino Frassica sta facendo Don Matteo.
How do you come to that understanding?
He would have told me.
Do you know why Mr. Depp stopped seeing you?
I know he was preparing to leave to Australia to go to work, and I assumed that was the reason.
But he hasn't returned to you since he went to Australia in 2015, correct?
Correct.
And did anyone inform you as to why he stopped seeing you?
No.
Last seen, Exhibit 9 are notes reflecting your care of Mr. Depp, correct?
Correct.
And you kept these notes in the ordinary course of business, correct?
Nino ha lavorato con Johnny, non ci credo neanche Andrea.
For Mr. Depp, correct?
Correct.
And this is page 1 of those notes from October 2nd, 2014, correct?
Correct. Again, there will be plenty of places where I don't remember, I can't read what they say. They are for
Guarda su Google, non è vero.
purposes only in these particular notes.
Okay.
And that's what makes them process notes.
In working with Mr. Depp, did he discuss any abuse he received as a child or an adolescent?
Yes.
And do you recall any difficulties that Mr. Depp was talking to you about in his relationship with his fiancée?
No, not from this.
Caputtana, è vero!
What does it say?
Such a pain in the ass.
C'ha ragione!
Do you recall why he was saying Amber was a pain in the ass?
No.
Okay.
Ma
What does
veramente?
the next thing say?
Well, in boxes about his kid's mom.
The tourist.
And again, I think I have the word destructive.
What was destructive referring to? You know?
I don't know. No,
Ma che storia.
Something relationship 14
Nino Frassica e De Sica alla sbarra.
Kids. Out about officially. He didn't want to be his dad. Thinking I'm not abandoning like his dad. And then below kids, it says clear, better. She needed me to be all this. Needed me to be all this week or all this work. I don't know.
If we turn to the next page, it says page 2. And then what's the next line say?
This violence, rage that we've had over a couple of years.
Okay, and so...
Bravo! Bravo, Nino!
So do you recall that...
Che sentimento!
They spoke about...
Fermo, please!
Violence and rage in other relationships...
No, non but!
In addition to...
Non
his
but!
relationship with Amber.
Scusate, lo devo rimettere, scusate! Fermo! Non but! Non but!
Oh my God. I'm so sorry. Cornuto!
Cornuto! Cornuto! A posto. Depp è un violento, mi ha buttato in un fiume, se ci manca.
Wouldn't take fear.
Ci manca,
Wake up
ci manca.
to fight devil. Wait up to fight devil.
You know what that's referring
C'era anche
to?
Angelina.
Devil?
Cornuto!
I think he referred to a devil as some version of internal depression and chaos that he felt. Something like an everyday phenomenon. He felt he was
Non but!
struggling. And he,
Stop, please!
label it as a devil.
So Mr. Depp labeled it's something that was internal to him as the devil?
As a representation of something horrible inside of himself, what I would say.
So the devil was something horrible inside of himself, correct? That's what Mr.
Again, I don't think he ever said that, so I'm going to be careful here. The devil was the representation of the battle that he had many days when he woke up with the depression and
Lei rode nel vederlo
anxiety
felice
and
comunque.
fears that he had.
Did Mr. Depp ever refer to himself as a monster?
Freedom boot.
Remember the word monster in my office, but I don't know if it's referring to himself or not. Maybe that'll be more revealed as we go forward.
Now, turning to Blaustein 12, which is page 4 of this exhibit.
Beh, è più felice di lei, Typhoon.
Yeah.
And then to the right, that says Amber's fiance, correct?
Correct.
And then there's
work through anger just below that.
Ti ricordo che lui entra in tribunale con la gente che dorme fuori per vederlo e a lei fischia, no?
I think what he was saying then is that part of his goal of therapy was to work through anger that he and his fiancée had towards each other.
Ma lui può dirle tutte queste cose?
Better with girl about it.
Lui può dire queste cose.
Self-destructive, hard to not put in front of me.
E sta leggendo, peraltro.
You know what self-destructive, hard not to put in front of me means? Is referring to?
Sta pure leggendo.
I think self-destructive was his drug use. That's what I think referring to at this time.
I'm now looking at Blaustein 13, which has a page 4. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And at the top it says Johnny/Debbie, correct?
Correct.
All right. And then the date, it says 10/what?
Appunto, Ana.
That's 10/7.
And so it says JD 10/21/14, correct?
Correct.
Non accetterà mai la colpa, Jen. Se perde il processo non accetterà mai la colpa, sarà colpa degli altri.
Need a minute. Here I can say with certainty his words, shit with my girl.
Lo faccio dopo, Gabron, che se no me lo chiedono altri 1000, appena finisce. Tanto non manca, tanto mancherà mezz'oretta. Penso che questa sia l'ultima di oggi.
What he was talking about, what difficulty he was having with Mr. Depp was having with Amber.
È il momento dell'abbiocco.
The next line looks like it says she refuses to
Abbiocchino.
accept.
Correct.
Do you know what Amber refuses to accept? What Mr. Depp was referring to?
No.
Se perde, giuria xenofoba perché lei è bisex.
Amber wedding.
Were you talking at this point about potentially Mr. Depp and
Sta facendo la mano al cupine.
Yes, he was talking about that, yes.
Okay. And then what does it say under she refuses to accept?
Wedding February.
And then what's next?
50
want to go to
milioni, Marco, 50 milioni.
Were there any discussions that you had with Mr. Depp where he had concerns about the age difference between him and Amber?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. But what does it say under 51 years old?
A lot of life experiences. You're being my mother and psychotic sister.
What did you understand Mr. Depp was referring to where you wrote you're being my mother and psychotic sister?
I think that's something that he told me, he said to her. That
Mr. Depp said to Amber, you're being my mother and psychotic sister?
That's what I would think, yes.
Okay. Then the next line.
High tolerance for marijuana.
Who has a high tolerance for marijuana?
He did.
Ma cos'è sta testimonianza? Cioè, qual è il succo? Al più tardi il 27, zio. Il problema è che il 27 c'è anche l'evasion.
Self-destructive very early.
And was Mr. Depp talking about himself being self-destructive very early?
Yes.
Okay. How is Mr. Depp describing that he was self-destructive?
I think, I don't recall, but let's continue and maybe something's there.
So he was trying to be sober.
Non so come fare.
And pills, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then, was it you who said reward?
Yeah, asking him about where can he get rewards elsewhere. Where did he get reward? I maybe asked him where did he get rewards elsewhere, and there he said.
Gli ultimi 2 giorni sono stati pesantissimi, Storm. Non vi dico un cacchio.
So what did you understand where you wrote MDMA, ecstasy, cocaine?
I'm not quite sure, but those are things that he had used in the past. There's always another possibility that I had asked him specifically about that, but I don't think so. I think it's more likely that those were things he had used in the past.
Do you know what pills Mr. Depp was referring to be sober from?
I know oxycodone was the main thrust at that time.
Rottenborn, quanto sei scarso, madonna.
Left, it says left off.
Yeah, and that's probably a note to myself.
L'ho visto, ma non mi emoziona, Lord. Se perde come paga, quello penso sia un problema suo.
And it's parallel to a relationship. What kinds of rewards could come back to him that could be healthy?
27 fine del processo, il verdetto quando è, Ana? Dimmi tutto, dimmi tutto. Donna dalle mille informazioni.
Biology changes. So I made a note to myself there to talk about how the brain changes in the face of many of these drugs over time.
Did you talk with Mr. Depp at all that his brain can change as he continues to take these drugs?
Yes, I did.
And then it says 10/27/14.
More on relationship issues, being accused, in his word, of being manic.
Io avevo sentito che finivano per quel weekend, Ana.
Son is one of the positive aspects of the relationship.
Doveva finire il 19.
Mr. Depp was saying that Amber reminded him of his mom and his psychotic sister.
The relationship reminded him.
Scusa, io
psychotic sister and
navigo anche perché tanto sta testimonianza non sta dicendo un cazzo.
And Mr. Depp talked about that he was being accused of being manic.
Yes.
Did he say who accused him of being manic?
Allora,
it was Amber.
Turn to the next page, Blaustein 16.
questo era il vecchio pezzo. Perché non c'è l'audio?
Attention.
You're not to watch anything about this case. You're not to listen to anything about this case. This applies to television, newspapers, magazines, the internet, and any online sites. Further, you're not to read, watch, or listen to anything about this case on any social networking sites such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, etc., or any similar sites. In addition, you must not communicate with anyone about the case, whether in person, over the phone, by email, text, or instant messaging, or by any other electronic or non-electronic means. This includes friends, family, coworkers, and strangers. I also instruct you that you cannot do any research or make any inquiries about this case, whether online or by p.m. So we'll be going 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Someday, in order to keep that promise,
Okay.
progress, okay? All right, so we promised to get to the case to you by Memorial Day. So in order to keep that promise, there's going to be a few things I need from you, okay? One thing is, starting on May 16th, we're going to start having court at 9 a.m.
Quindi
so we'll be going 9 a.m. to
dal
5 p.m.
16.
Some days we might have to go to 5:30, so I want to let you know ahead of time so you can plan accordingly, okay? The other thing I need from you is Friday, May 27th, which is the Friday before Memorial Day, is going to be a court day. On that day, we're going to go ahead and have closing arguments, and the case is going to be turned over to you for deliberations on that day.
No, non mi posso perdere la ringa.
Time so you can plan accordingly, so we can get this taken care of for you, okay?
Non mi posso perdere la
I
ringa.
want to make for you and make sure.
Caputtana l'evasion. Porca miseria, che ora è l'evasion? Canta. Quanto dura la ringa secondo voi?
More present, more attention. Off on dates. When I would ask him about what today might be.
Ma non faccio sega, piuttosto facciamo una stream straordinaria il giorno dopo, ce lo vediamo in differita. Tanto se non c'è il verretto vuol dire che non facciamo spoiler. Pino, mamma mia. No, possiamo fare zero spoiler e ce lo guardiamo il giorno dopo, tanto il verdetto non lo danno subito.
It says JD at the top and then 11, 10, 14. See that?
Yeah, I have that.
Okay. And Mr. Depp came in to see you on
I comuni medievali.
Correct. Okay. And what's the first line?
Non posso mettere il quadrino mentre gioco l'evasion, dai, su.
What do you mean by clouding?
Would have been something in,
Ma la finiscono così loro oggi? Cioè loro vanno avanti così fino alla fine di oggi?
Sharp, less alert, perhaps.
What's the next line say?
It says no evidence of
Va bene, Anna.
mania, hypomania.
What do you mean by that?
I didn't see.
Ma non voglio essere aggiornato, mannaggia, voglio la sorpresa.
Hypomania.
Okay. Next line.
Discussion about relationships, core issues of trust. Amber says context, contact.
Mamma mia, ma andiamo avanti.
Fruitless meeting with her therapist.
Did you ever observe Mr. Depp with mania or hypomania in any of your other sessions?
Not that I recall.
24 ore di arriga. No, ma ragazzi, ma dai, ma non danno il risultato il 27.
11/24/14.
The first line says 15 minutes late.
15 minutes late. Clear. Relationship stabilizing. Looking at jealous parts of him.
What do you mean by that? Looking at jealous parts of him?
Things that make him jealous and what his role might be in jealousy.
And what made Mr. Depp jealous?
Pensa che bello, Anna, se il verdetto ce l'hanno già subito. Finita la ringa, siamo pronti, signor giudice. Ma come? Siamo pronti da 15 giorni, signor giudice.
I see in my next notice it was a triggering point. My next notice, triggering point, early breakup at 22, where an actress cheated with a leading man.
So was Mr. Depp jealous of Amber being with other men?
I don't remember.
No, non si dice, Anna. Spariresti, volevi dire, vero? Errore di battitura.
Which looks like it starts at 12/7/14.
Yeah.
Mr. Depp.
Il verdetto senza sicura.
Correct.
And then it looks like you have paranoia in quotes.
Ma cosa sta dicendo questo? Dai.
What he meant by that, the elements were fear, envy, and vigilance.
So Mr. Depp told you something about paranoia?
Well, as he defined it.
And his elements of paranoia were fear,
Non credo,
envy,
vai
and
tu.
vigilance, as he told you. Then there's
Vogliamo Camille.
12/18/14.
Yeah, let's see. 12/18/14, yes.
And Mr. Depp came in for a session.
Yes. Patient working. So psychotherapy on phone. It says possible as a phone session that I didn't mark as a phone session. Big fight with girlfriend yesterday. Struggling with how to separate. Let her tell you her feelings. Relationship needs to take care of you.
Ho uno stronzo nel mio letto.
Her go to a safe zone, withdraw.
La prima volta che Camilla è entrata in aula avevano già il verdetto.
Then childhood experiences.
And then it's at 1/6/15, correct?
Pablo, grazie.
Correct.
My dog
and what are
stepped
these
on a
notes
bee.
say?
Ah, sì.
Patient late.
My dad
20
has
minutes.
to pee.
Questo l'avevo visto.
My dog stepped on a bee.
My dad has to pee.
My mom's stuck in a tree.
My squirrel got bit by a flea.
Without my glasses, I cannot see.
Ma perché? Ma perché il suo... Cioè, che cazzo c'entra? Il mio cane ha pestato un'ape.
Work. Take care of emotions.
Ma perché? Ciao, King.
Sobriety
Notte.
continuing.
And then Blaustein 20.
Ma quanto vanno avanti con sta cosa? Sto torturamento di
The
coglioni.
last page. And this is for 1/8/15, just to be clear.
1/8/15, correct. Slate, vulnerability, woman in studio who admired Amber.
Allora, Scrauserman
What does that mean? What did you understand that to be?
ha parlato Bruce Wiccan che suonava con lui, niente da riportare. Tracy Jacobs, ex agente, che ha detto che era aggressivo, però è anche di parte perché ce l'ha con lui perché l'ha licenziato. Joe Mandel, business manager, ha detto che Johnny Depp spendeva tanto. Adam Waldman, avvocato di Johnny Depp, non ha detto un cazzo perché non può, perché è ancora il suo avvocato. Detective Sandenago ha detto che i poliziotti hanno fatto bene il loro lavoro. Ron Schnell, ricercatore, ha fatto una figura di merda. Michelle Monroe era una Karen. Tina Newman era la produttrice esecutiva di Disney, non sa un caso. Ellen Barkin, attrice che vorrebbe tanto battersi Johnny, ma a lui lei non piace più, e lui sta parlando.
And my understanding of that is either to be free of the relationship or fight for it. And positive relatedness with Amber through
sorry, bros.
Did and 1/8/15 was the last time you saw or spoke to Mr. Depp as a patient, correct?
I believe that's true.
Did Mr.
Borderland 3
Depp describe
gratis.
to you at all how
Va
his
preso.
jealousy would present itself, whether he's jealous of a man or a woman
Va preso, chat.
in relation to Amber?
Grazie. Preso. A posto, grazie.
Angry, it would make him feel
Epic
insecure.
Store. Ah,
Your next witness.
c'è un'altra deposizione.
Your Honor, our next witness is Eric George. He was the attorney for Amber relating to the op-ed.
Will you please state
All right.
your name for the record?
Sure. Eric George, E-R-I-C. Last name is George, George.
And could you also state your business address, please?
Sure. 2121 Avenue of the Stars, Suite 2800, Los Angeles, California, 900.
Mi chiamo Giorgio, G-I-O-R-G-I-O.
Law firm that you work with?
It's Brown.
Lavoro per il marrone. Ma lavoro per il marrone! Lavoro per il marrone!
Ross, O'Brien, Anagway, and Ellis.
Lavora per il marrone!
Mr. George?
I am.
And I take it from the name of the firm that you are one of the named partners?
I am indeed.
Okay. What are your areas of practice?
Litigation, largely in the business and entertainment areas.
Have you handled defamation and libel matters?
Ma è un serial killer.
Where are you barred? In other words, what states are you a member of the bar?
Sure. In California, New York,
California,
and Washington, D.C.
And are you also a member or barred in the United States Supreme Court?
I am.
Lavoro per marrone.
Can you please tell us where you attended undergraduate and law school?
Sure. At Georgetown for both undergrad and law school.
What, if any, service did you have with the Council of the United States Senate Judiciary Committee?
Ma che me ne frega?
I'm just pausing to get my dates correct here. In approximately March of 1999,
Il barrista.
I began service as counsel to the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee, where I served through about mid-2000.
And what, if any, service did you have to the Secretary, the Legal Affairs Secretary to the Governor, Pete Wilson?
Sure. From about March 1997 to January of 1999, I was counsel to then Governor Pete Wilson, and my specific title was Deputy Legal Affairs Secretary.
Cazzo mi fate vedere?
Have you been recognized for your career achievements since you have been an attorney?
C'è un video. Paura ragazzi, non fatemi bannare.
Various ways that lawyers are.
Ditemi che è un gioco. Ditemi che è un gioco. Bench you. But you ask the question! Aspetta, no, ti prego. It's me. I'm Amber Heard's lawyer and I objected my own question. Bravo.
Distinguish themselves and generally occupy
Bravo.
the top 1% of law practice. And it's an organization dedicated to development of professionalism within the practice of law.
Objection!
I'm going to now turn to Amber Heard, and I'm going to ask you, Mr. George, how long have you known Amber Heard?
Posso fare un commento? Ma voi vi immaginate essere loro due e sentirvi dei coglioni sotto le telecamere? Capite cosa voglio dire? Cioè, in questo momento Camilla, Ben, si sentono i boss assoluti. Ma figurati, Agma. Ma loro due in questo momento, che brutto deve essere loro.
Will you be comfortable with me using op-ed and understand it to mean that particular publication on December 18, 2018?
Sure.
So what if any...
Loro si scassano, loro... aperitivo, patatine, lo sprizzino, i salatini, loro si scassano.
She presented to me a draft of the op-ed and asked for my counsel in terms of reviewing it, editing it, and finalizing it for publication.
Ha visto il video? Sì, avrà visto il video.
When is the first time Amber Heard reached out to you in connection with the op-ed and reviewing the op-ed?
It was certainly within the time frame of December 6, 2018.
In connection with the op-ed, what, if anything, was your objective in representing Amber Heard with respect to the review and revision of the op-ed?
I reviewed it and spent some significant time on it to make sure that there would be no meritorious claim that could be brought against her in connection with a defamation or related type of tort claim. And ideally, with that in mind, to minimize the possibility of her ever being sued in connection with publishing it.
Bel lavoro, posso dire bel lavoro?
I'm going to ask you to take a look.
Avete sentito cosa ha appena detto? Il suo compito è stato quello di revisionare l'articolo per assicurarsi che non ci fosse nessuna possibilità per Amber di essere citata in giudizio per quanto scritto nell'articolo. Posso dire complimenti. Bravo. Ottimo lavoro. Al 19° giorno di processo, bravo.
Yes.
And what was your objective in representing and advising Amber Heard on the op-ed in connection with this stipulated judgment of dissolution of marriage?
non l'eroe di quello.
Esatto. There would be no meritorious claim that could be brought against Ms. Heard in connection with the publication of an op-ed, whether that is a tort related to, say, defamation.
L'ha revisionato come relatore all'università.
But also including any contract-based breach claim arising in connection with the judgment.
Una cosa dovevo fare. Minchia Serge.
What if any indications
Minchia Serge.
from Amber Heard during that time frame that Amber did not intend to follow your advice or did not care if she was in a compromising position or might be at legal risk?
Sottile.
So let me answer that this way. Really 2 points. Number one, there was never anything that she said to me to the effect that she was willing to run some risk of being sued or that she wouldn't listen to my counsel or anything of that sort. Number two, that she affirmatively did follow in all instances my counsel with respect to these particular edits.
What, if any, legal advice provided by you to Amber Heard respecting the Washington Post op-ed was disregarded by Amber Heard?
None, to my knowledge.
What, if any, legal advice
Quello di Camillo non l'hanno ancora
provided by you
messo.
to Amber Heard respecting the Washington Post op-ed was followed by Amber Heard?
My job is done.
All of it.
What, if any, legal advice did you provide to Amber
Quale
Heard
consiglio
in
legale hai
connection
dato a
with the
Amber
drafting and publication of the
riguardo
op-ed
all'articolo?
that was not made in good faith by you?
I acted in good faith throughout and with the best of my abilities.
Ma che testimonianza è? Oh, vostro onore.
Next witness.
Basta.
Yes, Your Honor. We have Jessica Kovacevic. She's Amber's agent, and that's approximately 27 minutes.
Tana la miseria
It's a tough one.
maledetta.
Kovacevic.
All right.
Fermi tutti. Prima di vederla, che faccia ha questa signora? Colore dei capelli. Bionda? Bionda? Stragrande maggioranza dice bionda bianca. Karen bionda bianca. Bingo! Woohoo! Bingo!
Good afternoon, Ms. Kovacevic. And Ms. Kovacevic, do you know that...
Make introductions, you read their scripts, you negotiate their deals.
And I take it Ms. Heard is one of your clients?
Yes.
Mi devo stampare una palla di cristallo. Mi devo stampare anche meno.
Began working with her.
Yes.
And over the period that
Mi devo
you
stampare
worked,
una palla di cristallo.
with Ms. Heard
La
as
pipa
her
non
agent,
serve già
what
più.
of your job responsibilities entailed?
Like I mentioned before, introducing
Elementare,
her to
Watson.
producers and directors, writers, studio executives, procuring work for her.
Mi sono scordato per lui.
Introducing her to people that can employ her, and then negotiating her deals, and then dealing with whatever happens on while she is working, anything that arises that needs dealing with.
Did you ever, at any point in time, see Mr. Depp hit Ms. Heard?
No.
Were you working with Ms. Heard when she was cast in the original Aquaman?
Aquaman!
She was cast in Justice League first, and then the deal was to be in Justice League, the first Aquaman and the second Aquaman.
Did you assist Ms. Heard in procuring the role of Mira in Aquaman?
Yes.
Was Aquaman a successful movie?
Extremely.
Extremely.
Was Ms. Heard's performance in the film well received critically?
Yes.
Yes.
Were there any negative views about Ms. Heard's performance in Aquaman?
In the press, you mean? Or what do you mean specifically?
Well, in the press or otherwise.
No, there weren't any negative.
Nessuna.
As her talent agent, did you attempt to renegotiate Ms. Heard's salary for Aquaman 2?
Nessuna, Google. Amber Heard Aquaman Review. Dicembre 11 2018. Aquaman Movie. Uno spreco della prestazione di Mera.
To renegotiate it at all?
It's standard to,
Il nostro eroe nuota. Il film fa cagare.
It's normal practice.
Dicembre 19 2018.
When when Aquaman came out, it was the most successful movie of all time ever. So even more so for that reason. But for any successful franchise movie, when you make a 3 or 4 picture deal like we did in success,
Onesta.
It's typical to go back and renegotiate the deal.
And now getting to your point, why did you choose to do it last year at this time?
because that's when her option was exercised.
And when you did get around to trying to negotiate, you and WME successful in doing that?
Correct.
When did he call Warner Brothers to renegotiate the next film?
It would have been the end of February last year.
Okay.
What year was that? 2021?
Onesta.
Yes.
At some point, were there press reports that Ms. Heard was getting released from Aquaman 2?
There were online rumors for a while that she was being replaced.
When did you first hear about those?
First, I don't know exactly when, but it was way before.
Sergio, il film è una merda, lettera d'acqua.
It was maybe even a year before this. 6 months before, maybe.
Grazie,
So
Pesto.
nobody ever told you that Warner Brothers misrepresented the reason that they were replacing Ms. Heard, correct?
Why? No, why would they?
Did there come a time when Ms. Heard was restored to her role in Aquaman 2?
Yes.
At that time, what were the terms of her restoration to Aquaman 2?
Talmente bello che non l'ho visto.
Yes.
She was going to be making $2 million on the second film.
Was that consistent with the original contract?
Yes.
Is this consistent with what Warner Brothers originally gave as the rationale for not using her in Aquaman 2?
The lack of chemistry between her and Jason?
Yes.
Yes.
So did there come a time when WME came to understand that Ms. Heard's role as Mira in Aquaman 2 was diminished in some way?
When she was sent the script, directly, which is the common practice for these films.
You're aware that Ms. Heard has a contract with L'Oreal, correct?
Yes.
Were you working with Ms. Heard when she signed that contract?
Yes.
What's a bot?
A bot is a fake account that's created to execute a certain objective.
What is your educational background since high school?
College.
What college did you attend?
NYU.
What year did you graduate?
2005.
What was your major?
Communications.
When WME first began working with Ms. Heard as her talent agent, you said she had had some success. How well known was Ms. Heard?
Un caso.
She was pretty famous. She was within the industry. You could call anyone and they knew who she was. So she had a certain level of fame. She had starred in movies and shows already by that point.
Okay, going back and taking a wider lens, over the time that the several years you've worked with Ms. Heard, how would you characterize the arc of her career?
I would say she was a known actress when I started working with her. Like I said, she was someone that you could call executives and producers and people about everyone, knew her name. She hadn't yet reached big star status, but she was definitely, she could get the lead of an independent movie. She could get the lead of a TV series. When I worked with her, we slowly started to strategically, have her work on some more prestigious projects and work with, better directors.
Mica mi stai facendo venire voglia di giocare a Minecraft,
when she got
Shumi.
Justice League, that was a turning point for her. And then Aquaman, subsequently was obviously the biggest thing she had ever been a part of.
And as Is the arc of her career now on the upswing with her being part of Aquaman 2?
No.
Moica hanno appena detto, è
Tell me
un'ottima
what you mean,
idea.
why not?
Because typically, when you have an actor who is in a movie as successful as that, as Aquaman was, their career totally changes, and they're in a different echelon. They, get way more offers. They're just put in a different place, position-wise with studios. They're more bankable, so they can greenlight projects. All of those kind of things are consistent with when you're in a blockbuster of that size. And with her,
E come mai allora lei non ha fatto un cazzo dopo? No, non è
it
successo con
happened,
lei.
Very significantly for her co-star. Obviously, he's the lead of the film and he's the title
Com'è
character.
possibile
but,
che lei non abbia fatto un cazzo dopo Aquaman?
Even a small percentage of that did not happen for her. So that's my assessment.
What evidence sitting
Com'è
here
possibile?
Today do you have that this caused her career any harm?
Because evidence in that,
Quando raggiungi la
in
vetta,
my
il resto...
experience and the experience of my colleagues in the experience of this business, your career takes a turn after something like that. She was very well received in the movie at the time. Everyone was very happy with her at the time. There was no issues. And then to have a complete...
Non molti film chiedono una
and then
chiedono per una parte da palo con le tette. Wait.
Tweets and negativity put out about her. I don't have a physical piece of paper of evidence, but it's the only logical conclusion I can draw.
Can you name a single role she has lost as a result of any activity by Adam Waldman or anyone at his behest?
There was a movie at Amazon that she had been offered.
Qual è il suo ruolo?
I don't know what the final title of it is called now. I can look it up. It had a working title at the time. That they...
Ora che sappiamo quello che sappiamo, non riuscite a vedere la faccia da stronza pure qua?
Very much wanted it to be her and was very frustrated with the process, and no one can say out loud, we're taking this away from her because
ora che sappiamo, chat, non ha un effetto diverso.
And it's all hearsay and it's all, whatever, but there's no other reason.
Now,
ora che sappiamo,
you've testified a bit about Adam Waldman, correct?
Correct.
Puttana, chat.
And can you point us to any career opportunities that Miss Heard
Una cosplayer della Sirenetta. Sembra una parodia porno di Aquaman.
I mean, the Amazon movie for
E quelle tette sono pure aiutate, sì.
is tangible because that is an example of something that she had before all of it that was then taken away. I know that a campaign she shot for Todd's via Katie Slater.
Quindi l'unico lavoro che ha perso dopo Aquaman è stato un film per Amazon Prime. Wow! Wow!
There was not another specific example because, like I said to you, no one is going to say to me, oh, we can't hire her because of these tweets or whatever. They just don't want to hire someone that has bad press around them from, these accusations, calling being accused of a liar and making something up and, abusing somebody. No one wants that association with their project.
And directing your attention 10 pages into the article, there's another quote from Mr. Waldman. Mr. Waldman states in this article, quote, quite simply, this was an ambush, a hoax. They set Mr. Depp up by calling the cops, but the first attempt didn't do the trick.
Tirano fuori gli articoli di Waldman di nuovo.
Thoroughly searched and interviewed and left after seeing no damage to face.
Dopo vi faccio vedere la bodycam dei poliziotti.
Spilled a little wine and roughed the place up, got their stories straight under the direction of a lawyer and publicist, and then placed a second call to 911. End quote. Did I read that correctly?
It just shows the top part of that on this page, but the top part was correct.
Okay. Did any potential, was WME aware of Adam's statement, Mr. Waldman's statements in this particular article?
Yes.
Now, you testified a little bit earlier about there being tweets from Adam, and I assume you were referring to Adam Waldman. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what, if any, impact did it have on Amber Heard's career and career path to have Mr. Depp's lawyer putting out statements in the press and in tweets that Amber Heard was lying, making things up, creating a hoax of abuse?
I think that his comments spurred on, it just added fuel to the fire. So there was already so much media coverage.
And that's what you observed?
That's what I observed.
I'm going to take you to Aquaman, and I'll call it Aquaman 1 just to make it a little bit easier to understand. What, if any,
è una registrazione audio, appassionati.
Raised with Amber Heard by anyone
E lei che prende i tonni.
responsible for the filming of Aquaman?
No performance issues raised whatsoever.
And what was your understanding of how Amber tested?
Qualcuno di voi mi fa una ricerca su Google Trend
My
di
understanding was that she tested extremely well.
ricerche a luci rosse su Amber in questo periodo? Giusto una curiosità.
All the markers of a very successful movie at this point.
Me la fate un trend?
Yes.
You testified earlier that it's quite typical when you have a series of 3 to 4 films in a franchise or a series to be able to renegotiate as you go into the sequels. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes.
Secondo me è esplosa. Se cerchi tipo Aquaman parody, roba del genere, esplode.
The initial deals, before the movie has done, well, and then when the movie overperforms like that, it's a custom.
Minchia, Pino la fa.
In light of the success of Aquaman, would you expect that Amber
Posso farla vedere in live, vero? Pino.
As of this time?
Yes.
And what is the typical?
Posso?
What is the typical process that happens after someone has starred in a very successful movie, such as Aquaman and Amber with Mira?
The endorsement department would a combination of
Beh, che dire, Amber. Dai, se vanno male le cose almeno sai come pagare Johnny.
Seeking out opportunities.
Now,
se le cose vanno male almeno sai cosa fare.
Career trajectory leading up to and immediately after the success of Aquaman 1, did you expect her career to go on an upward, downward trajectory, or stay the same?
I expected an upward trajectory.
And why is that?
Because in success of a film like that, it's usually always the case.
And immediately after the successes of Aquaman, would you have expected Amber's annual earnings to increase, decrease, or stay the same compared
Con la
to
piscinetta su Twitch può essere.
I would have expected them to increase.
And why is that?
Because her profile had been raised internationally. She was in a movie that was successful worldwide. And when you are in a movie that performs that well worldwide, your bankability is stronger. You can finance an independent film more easily.
Che schifo, Darkness.
More easily. You can
Che schifo.
just do more and for more money.
Do you recall what the budget was for Aquaman?
The first one? I don't know. It would have been probably somewhere between 150 and 200 million.
Immediately after the success of Aquaman, would
L'incredibile
you expect her
successo.
to continue to
L'incredibile trionfo di
the
Aquaman.
fee she made on Aquaman on future big budget studio firms, or less or more?
You that becomes an actor's quote, their fee. Yes, typically, like, you will then earn your, not on a tiny independent film, you couldn't make that much money on that, but another studio film, another film at a streamer or whatever, something like that, you would make that much or potentially get a raise.
Streamer? Non dire il mio
Other than
fatturato, per
Aquaman 2,
favore.
has Amber obtained any roles with a budget the size of Aquaman's?
No.
Has she been hired for any films with budgets over 100 million?
No.
Scusate.
Then the size of Aquaman?
You would make that much or potentially get a raise.
Other than Aquaman 2, has Amber obtained any roles with a budget the size of Aquaman's?
No.
Has she been hired for any films with budgets over 100 million? Same.
Increase.
And did it?
No.
Would you expect
Ma come mai non l'hanno pagata di più? Sarà sicuramente colpa di
to get
Johnny.
more TV roles?
Objection.
And why?
Why? Because I mentioned earlier in the conversation, TV and films are so blended now, and there's much less of a delineation between picking projects between film and TV.
And did Amber receive more TV roles?
Ha ricevuto
as a result
offerte,
of
Amber?
The success of Aquaman?
No.
Ma com'è possibile? Dopo il successo dell'incredibile
Immediately after
Aquaman.
the success of Aquaman, would you have expected Amber to star in more than one project per year, less, or the same?
It depends. If it was a big, Aquaman takes up 6 months of the year. Big movies take up longer time. Indies, you can do a couple of them a year. It just depends. So I wouldn't put a number on it, but definitely more than 0.
And has Amber started more than one project per year since then?
Incredibile.
Immediately after the success of Aquaman, did you expect Amber to earn between $5 and $10 million a year for the next 5 years?
I would have expected to renegotiate on Aquaman 2, most certainly. And so right there, that would have been significantly more. And she would have, yes, I would have expected her to earn more in a combination of TV, film, and more endorsements.
Was it your understanding that
Quindi, in sintesi, lei non ha fatto, cioè Aquaman non le è servito un cazzo perché nessuno la vuole. Pecorino e pistacco.
They were getting at that time?
Yes.
All right. Let's bring up 30 again, please. Now, did in fact L'Oreal suspend having Amber Heard on the International Women's Day campaign?
L'Oreal ha sospeso la campagna. Ma come?
Were for the renewal.
It was just essentially that they were renewing her. It was the same fee.
Dopo vi faccio vedere la differenza tra come arriva lei in tribunale e come arriva lui.
But they were extending her.
Okay. And typically coming out of the success of Aquaman,
Successone.
would you have anticipated that Amber could have negotiated larger fees for commercial projects?
Yes, we would.
Okay, and why would that
Anche
be?
subito.
Because her profile had been raised. She was, she had done something super successful. So typically that's what you would do. That would just be the standard practice.
When did you first learn about the change.org petition that was out there to try to get Amber Heard dropped from Aquaman 2?
I don't know when I first saw it.
Were you
Allora,
aware of it as of May 27, 2020?
Yes.
You earlier talked about bots in response to one of Mr. Chu's questions. What, if anything, was your understanding of these bots at this time, during this time frame?
My understanding is just based off my own, mainly based off my own research, just clicking on the accounts myself.
questo è come la macchina con cui arriva Johnny. Con Bob e Malle a tutto volume. Col Cadillaccone. Adesso vi faccio vedere come arriva lei. Lei arriva con un pick-up che è l'equivalente cioè, italiano di un ducato.
That's how she came.
Esatto.
No, she could have gotten a better car than that. Really? Why though? Like, just like her lawyer.
Yeah, you guys taking me now? I'm about to put the camera on my shoulder.
Yes.
Giusto per dire, lui arriva con le scalette Bobbe Malle e lei arriva col Ciorino. È il ducato della Dodge.
After Aquaman 1. Should have been.
Anna de Armas, yes, I would say that would be a comparable, that would be a good one.
Boh, ride pure Johnny, hai fatto ridere anche Johnny.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end
Grazie.
of our day and the end of our week. So I want to make sure you have a good 3 days and come back for our last week of testimony.
Era l'ultimo oggi.
And enjoy your weekend. I just want to remind you again
Wait,
of what
domani
we need to
niente.
remember as we go through the weekend, okay?
Mica
you're
domani
not to read
dormo,
anything
regà.
about this case. You're not to watch anything about this case. You're not to listen to anything about the case. This applies to television, newspapers, magazines, the internet, and any online sites. Further, you're not to read, watch, or listen to anything about this case on any social media networking site or streaming service. In addition,
Certamente.
you must not communicate with anyone about the case, whether in person, over the phone, by email, text, or instant messaging,
Senza
or by
dubbio.
any other electronic or non-electronic means. This includes your fellow jurors, friends, family, co-workers, acquaintances, and strangers. I also instruct you that you cannot do any research or make inquiries about this case, whether online or by any other means. For example, you cannot look information up on the internet that is related to this case or related to the persons involved in this case, nor may you consult dictionaries or other reference materials. What you learn about this case is limited to what you learn in the four walls of this courtroom when proceedings are underway, all right? So enjoy your weekend. We'll see you early, 9 o'clock, ready to go Monday morning, okay? Thank you.
Quante sono le chance che questi escono di qui e chiamano subito la mamma per raccontarle tutto? Quante sono le chance, chat? Che questi escono da questa stanza e dicono: "Oh, ma hai visto? Ma è incredibile! Oh, ma è una cosa pazzesca!" Dai, è impossibile che questi non abbiano parlato. È impossibile, ma non esiste. Questi qua, secondo me, mi mandano i messaggi mentre sono lì. Sei un pigman. Tarkov. Giusto, devo concludere la registrazione perché poi devo eliminare il VOD, quindi niente, per chi guarda i VOD da YouTube, ci vediamo domani. Per il processo ci vediamo domani, io adesso passo a Tarkov.